98%, 90, whatever, large percent of the time, your device is basically on a 4G, right? Because it camps as what it's called. It's registered on the 4G network, so you're not basically using 5G. So it's kind of means
you're saying it's a lie.
Is this why some of these availability metrics from like Ookla and Signal, it's like 5G availability is like 8%, and you're like, 8?
Yeah, exactly.
It's supposed to be providing it across 80% of the country.
Yeah, exactly, because you're actually camped on a LTE, and so it would be nice if with this new network you could actually use it as your base network and be camped. And the implication of this is, I mean, you're not necessarily going to notice this as a user, by the way, so it could come to that.
Hello and welcome to another unexpected Telecoms.com podcast. I know on the last one we did, I said you're not going to get shit out of us for the whole of the rest of August. But it turns out that, and the main reason for that is because Pierre was going to be out of the country on holiday. And I think I'm just going to hand straight over to Pierre and go, Pierre, why are we doing a pod on today, the 15th of August?
I just missed you guys too much. No, there was an issue with my passport. Let's say the official story is that I lost it in Madrid.
Okay. So you were in transit in Madrid to get to Caracas, yeah?
Yes, and I had to get an emergency passport on Monday. And I flew to Caracas on Tuesday, and
so it was enough to get you on the plane.
Yes, and I was denied in Caracas. Put straight back on the plane back.
Shit, what a nightmare!
18 hours inside 24 hours,
God.
And so now I went to the consulate here on yesterday actually, yeah, and so fingers crossed I get it soon, but I don't know. My hopes are pretty low because today is bank holiday.
But you got no. Do you still going to try and go to Caracas like for a week or something?
Well, if by some miracle I get my passport, like let's say on Friday,
right,
I will give it a shot and leave on Saturday.
Do you have to buy a whole new plane ticket?
Just the one way there. I didn't lose the return.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
God, well, I feel for you, mate. That's an absolute nightmare. So you had the hassle in Madrid first,
yeah,
and then your heart when you got to Caracas and you start to realise that they weren't going to let you in. You must have just...
Yeah. I've been away from the kids for 15 days now already.
I know.
Yeah.
I feel for you, mate.
Yeah. It is what it is. And
then like the trooper you are, you went, fuck it, let's do a pod then.
Well, I didn't want to be alone. I was like, let's do this. Yeah.
Right. So you don't want to do a pod. You just want some consolation beers with the lads.
Just to hang out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you, mate. Albeit under suboptimal circumstances.
Yeah.
And so, and before I go any further, we've also got a guest, which is a pretty good effort. Gabriel Brown, returning guest on the pod. Gabriel Brown, an analyst at Heavy Reading, who, it's amazing how we can cobble together a podcast even with a guest at a moment's notice. So thanks a lot for coming on.
Do you know what? I saw, I was editing the Light Reading podcast and Gabe was a guest on it. And at the end, he told Kelsey, it's great to be back. And I was like, almost a subliminal message, like
it's meant to happen.
Yeah, it's meant to happen. Yeah.
So this is a podcast of fate.
That's it.
Great to have you back, Gabe. And we're going to get stuck into some of the stuff that's been occupying your mind professionally. So what's it been? A couple of weeks here.
Mm-hmm.
Opening bollocks. We both separately had lunches with Huawei this week.
Yep.
And that was great. Thanks a lot, Huawei crew. My one went on a lot longer than I thought it would.
Yeah,
we were just having a good natter, and we just kept ordering more rounds.
Yeah, it was more like a day.
Yeah, I know.
Day out.
I mean, I didn't get home that late, and didn't get to bed that late, but because of the amount of alcohol coursing through my system, I fucking shagged out the next day.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
We went to a steak place called Flatiron.
Nice.
Near King's Cross. But that was really good. We just had a really good chat, and I thought fair play to him. Sometimes, you almost feel like the era of those incredibly drawn out lunches is over.
Yeah, I heard you got asked to leave.
Yeah, well, we got asked to vacate the table because they were starting to bring people in for dinner, man. By the time we were done.
Why were they separate lunches? Is it a sort of a divide and
we wonder about that. I think there is
a
a bit of a divide. I wouldn't say divide and conquer. I don't think that's their intention. But they obviously quite like just speaking to us individually. I don't know.
I don't really know their reasons for wanting to do separate lunches rather than combine it, which they've done in the past. But you'd have to ask them.
Whatever.
I don't really.
But probably just as well. God, if it'd been the two of us at that one I was at, we bring out the worst in each other when it comes to.
I think the reason is
drinking
clear.
to excess.
It's that so they can get 2 free lunches out of it.
Well,
There we are. We're on to you, Huawei. And then they'll be meeting up with Andrew tomorrow and Teresa next day.
Exactly.
I've got to mute my phone. So that was good fun. And then other than that, I don't think I've done any other worky things. We had a couple of beers with Ronan after pod, and that was really good fun. It's
that
good
was ages ago.
Yeah, but that was the last pod
Been
we
on
did.
holiday since then.
You've been on holiday. Okay, so you've been to Slovakia. How was Slovakia?
It's good.
Oh, you managed to make it there.
Oh, I know. I was just thinking that. God, it must have been so nice to spend quality time with your family.
It was close because my son's passport's only got just over 3 months on it, so you need 3 months.
Yeah, but it was close. It happened still, right?
It was, yeah, it was. It was just a week, same old malarkey.
Looks like they have nice weather there.
It wasn't as hot as here. It was like 21, I think, on average.
Yeah, I've got to say, it's hot as fuck in the UK right now.
It was 39 in Madrid.
Oh my God.
But
that's
dry, like no humidity at least.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was nice. Just did a lot of walking, really, and played a lot of paddle. You come across that game?
Oh, yeah.
Remind me what that is.
It's like a sort of
squash tennis
version of tennis.
There's all these little ones, there's like pickleball. Yeah, there's all these little hybrid.
It's on a small court, but you've got a back wall, like glass wall.
So that's the squashy bit.
All the way. So I say you basically play it like tennis, but it can bounce off the back, and you can.
And it's only double.
And it's only played with doubles. The court's too small, and the ball goes too quickly for you to play it singles. You wouldn't be anywhere. So
I was shocked by how much the rackets are.
But the rackets are heavy. You can't really put any spin on it. It's all like short, sharp, sort of.
I see.
The techniques.
Are they like tennis or squash rackets, or are they hard?
It's like a bat. It's
more like
a hard bat.
ping pong.
Yeah, like a small, thick. Yeah.
But
they each an average one is like 120 pounds.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is to play paddle in this country. There's a paddle place near us in Wandsworth, like an outdoor one. To rent the court for an hour, £80.
Yeah.
Because what they're depending on is that the 4 people who go out
cost of living crisis.
Exactly. Isn't it? But if you wanted to take your family to play, then
it's a fortune. I've never played, but it's quite a kind of, if I put it this way, middle class thing, right? I mean, that's the demographic.
You're trying to say
it's a great workout, and you can already.
If you watch the top guys,
middle-aged, I don't think
I am middle-aged, yeah. But if you watch the top guys playing, because it's obviously got this sort of professional, it's pretty quick and skillful.
But it's easier to play than tennis.
The difference between my older son playing and my younger son was got quite good at it as well. And Magda and me was like we were sort of nowhere near the stuff they were able to do because you've got to get around the court quite fast and it all happens quite quickly.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a good workout.
It's really hard actually judging the ball coming off the back wall because it just sort of sometimes it just kind of takes off. It's hard to know where to sort of position yourself, and there's a lot of volleying in it if you're really good at it.
Yeah, I'd like to give that a go actually.
It's good fun. Anyway, they built a paddle court at the hotel that's sort of near where my wife lives, so we ended up making use of that. And yeah, other than that, it was just basically sitting around with the family and drinking.
Yeah.
Well, it's rude not to, isn't it? I've had a couple of, just not work related at all, just a couple of fun nights out. A couple of weeks ago, I went out to see some comedy with my mate Gavs, who I think I've mentioned on the pod, and you've met him. And two interesting things happened. It was like a matinee on a Monday. It was a weird one. There was just this one comedian called Jeffrey Asmus or something like that. Anyway, and he's really funny, amazing crowd work. Really thinks on his feet. And my mate Gavs was into it, and that's why I went. And for some reason, he was only playing at that slot. And then, as I was walking out, I saw someone that I recognised, which is like one of my oldest friends, a guy called China Mieville, who's quite a well-known
author.
Yeah.
Read one of his books.
You read one?
Okay, I read one of his book. He's a friend of yours.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I grew up with him.
Yeah, I knew you knew him. You mentioned him before.
Yeah, and I'd lost touch with him. And then I just suddenly saw him. All right, China. Anyway, now I'm going out having dinner with him at the end of the month.
Did you tell him you're an author as well now?
But you know what he actually said? Because I spoke to him for like less than 5 minutes because we're all filing out of this comedy club. He actually said he bought my book, but he hasn't read it yet. So we'll see.
Well, he'll have to read it before he meets you. Otherwise, that'd be rude.
That'd be rude. Well, actually, the other amazing thing about him is he's co-written a book with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I knew that.
I've seen the latest John Wick.
Yeah.
He's pretty well known, Shiny Melville. If you go into
Yeah, I'm
any
trying to
Waterstones,
look up what I've
like
read of
his
his.
science fiction section is full of his stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy name, by the way.
He's not like a not
It is.
well-known author.
I think the official answer to why he's called China is his mum just thought it was a beautiful word.
I think I read a book of his called Perdido Street Station.
Oh, yeah.
It's about that big, and I can't even remember it properly now.
Well, if you pick up Perdido Street Station and look at the beginning in the acknowledgements, I get a shout out because
I didn't notice
this
that.
is back when I was, in my early 20s when
Yeah.
we saw each other more, well, at all, but certainly more frequently. I was one of the people he got, just like I think I got you to give my book a once over.
Yeah.
I was one of the people he got to give that a once
Right.
over. I doubt I was much help.
Yeah.
But there we go. I got a little credit, so thanks for that, China. Anyway, so that was cool. And then after that, me and Gavs were at a pub, and then he noticed, and the pub was within sight of this comedy club.
You know it's Keanu Reeves.
No, he didn't notice Keanu Reeves. I did say to my mate China, he's welcome to bring Keanu along if he wants when we have dinner.
Get him on the pod.
Oh, I sent him a link to a bit on the pod we did recently when we were talking about Keanu Reeves, where we were talking about, remember in the Matrix where he got to download all that information. I think we were talking about in the context of AI. Anyway, and we were outside this comedy club, and Gavs recognised a guy that he'd last seen in a comedy club in New York, who was a comedian
Yeah.
called Josh. I'll get his proper name. Anyway, cut long story short, he was like, oh, fucking hell, I just saw that bloke in New York. And then the bloke came into the pub, and Gavs was Josh Adam Myers, he's called. And then Josh Adam Myers came into the pub, and I went, Gavs, buy him a pint. And we bought him a pint, and next thing we do, he's hung out with us for the whole night, and we just got pissed with this guy, with this American comedian.
Brilliant.
So that was really surreal. And then the other...
Look at you hanging out with all the celebs.
it's just a weird... And it was a Monday. It's just a really weird, surreal
life's
evening.
changing.
Yeah, and then
knocks.
last night I went out again with Gavs and my wife and his wife to see some other comedy, and there were two stand-ups. One is a guy called Francis Foster, which is best known for co-hosting the Trigonometry podcast.
Yeah, I heard of that.
And another one's Leo Kearse. Anyway, they were both very funny. I got to say, no offence to Francis, not that he'll see this. Leo Kearse was especially funny.
What
He's
venue- what
fucking
venue was it?
hilarious. His stand-up.
Which venue?
It's just a little pub in Soho called The Hems.
Oh.
It's just the top floor. The crowd, the whole audience was about 40 people.
Did you meet up with Margot Robbie after that one or something?
No. I did chat briefly to Leo beforehand, and I thought, don't be that guy who's just like, going, I'm talking to a famous person. But I spoke to him very briefly, and then decided to sort of compose myself and step away from the comedian. So yeah, those are little bits of opening bollocks. Unless you've got any sort of random bits of your private life that you're desperate to share with the audience.
Not really.
No. Okay, don't worry. We're oversharers on this pod, you see. Well, we'll get straight into it then. I think what we're going to chat about
12
on the
minutes
pod.
later.
12 minutes later.
That's not the longest intro.
No, we've definitely had. That's about standard opening bollocks, isn't it?
It's a summer one, yeah.
Do you remember one time where I was congratulating myself for doing a short one, and then you brought something up that we went on
That's
about
what's
for 10
happening
minutes?
right now, yeah.
What we're going to chat about. So we always chat about our guests' wheelhouse first, and I know Gabriel, you about a week ago, you published something on Light Reading called 5G Standalone is set to scale worldwide. And you also shared it on LinkedIn, and I saw that, and I saw quite a lot of people on LinkedIn sort of got involved, gave you their feedback, gave you their thoughts on the matter. So I think we'll talk about 5G Standalone. And I think, if I understand conversations with you correctly, that there's a sort of segue into sort of looking forward to 6G and that as well, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the way to look at it is that we've had 5G for 5 years now, roughly speaking.
Halfway through the putative cycle.
We're on a kind of in terms of and now obviously 5G standalone is where you can run 5G without 4G core network, and there's loads of ins and outs to this. But basically, there's quite a few operators that have done it already.
Yeah.
T-Mobile US, Jio in India, Chinese operators, they're all doing it at big scale. But it's been quite a lag, I guess, elsewhere. Now, there's obviously a few smaller outfits and things. But I guess what I'm kind of saying is, as a result of research and a lot of anecdata and news flow as well that comes with it, is
Anecdata. I haven't heard that neologism.
Oh, haven't you?
No.
I don't know. I don't know that one.
Anecdata.
I thought you'd
It's
said
like
it wrong, but
Thought he was having a funny turn.
too many beers.
I've literally had half
we
small lager.
should,
which
we
is
should
like a
mention the
quarter.
lager. So your blog that you wrote on this, I noticed, was sponsored by Mavenir. And I thought it was appropriate that you have that lager because it's Sisk lager, and that's what Emma from Mavenir brought when we had Brandon Larson on, and we still had a couple of them knocking about.
Yeah.
So I thought that that's sort of poetically tidy for you to finish them off.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying.
It's as good a plug as any. Obviously, thanks to Mavic for sponsoring it. Worth pointing out that when we do research ahead reading, it is independent. We don't do the sponsors bidding. We don't cover their companies or products or anything like that.
That's an important point to make.
To their credit, they let us, they support it, but they let us do it. So they're not like leaning on us or anything like that.
And no predetermined outcomes or anything like that. Yeah.
So, fair enough. Yeah, so basically we got to this point where it's been a little bit difficult for various reasons, but I think EE has one in UK. They've had some announcements as well. They're aiming to be Europe's #1 SA network, for example. And recent. So this is anecdata, I guess. Now there's a whole bunch of
Theirs is quite widespread now, I think. They're claiming
I think they're over 50% population coverage. They
They've
added
gone quite
another
quick with it.
40, 50 towns.
Yeah.
And so this is what I'm saying. We're at a kind of a point in the industry in general where it's starting to accelerate, it's starting to lift off a little bit and go a bit quicker, starting to scale, which is essentially what...
Did you ever get a chance, just on the EE thing, to use one of their standalone phones?
No, we went through a little bit with the press guy.
Right.
And I don't know, it's kind of too complicated, so...
Because if you get... I'm still on an iPhone 14, but if you've got a 15 or a 16 now, that will work on their standalone network.
Well, this is the sort of the essence of how it's going to scale, I think, is, people say, well, maybe get into it. But I think as you get new phones on new plans, that's how it's going to really become introduced into the subscriber base. So you're not necessarily going to go, I've got a 2-year-old iPhone, I must have this SA. Most people probably not going to need that. But as they upgrade, as they come onto a new plan, as the networks get better, they're going to kind of naturally... transition over.
I was wondering whether I'm interested. I was going to upgrade and I didn't. I just sort of extended the phone and gone on SIM only or whatever. But one incentive to get a new phone was, in a slightly nerdy way, the standalone, just because maybe this is buying into their story quite a lot, but whenever I've talked to sort of Howard Watson about it, who's the CTO for people who aren't familiar with EE, he's always said that they think they've got a kind of indoor improvement through it because of the spectrum that kind of brings into use, and that's like a frustration for anybody, I think, in London especially.
Yeah, I mean, EE's a little bit, they're not unique, but T-Mobile in the US are a bit the same way. Their lowest band was a 5G band, so... It would help
600 or whatever.
Yeah, they were 600 and EE 700, so it would help a little bit. Not every operator's got that scenario though, so that's a sort of it's a nice thing for them to have.
So, I mean, the obvious thing, and we can get a bit more into your rationale if you want. And by the way, I won't bother previewing what else we're going to talk about. We'll just get around to it when we get around to it. Seeing as we already started on this.
It'll be a surprise.
It'll be a little surprise, yeah.
And we can make it up as we go along.
It won't be such a surprise to see what the Scott between self-indulgent bit is. Usual true to form stuff. But anyway,
is it going to be about free speech?
Not this time, actually. No. It's scaling worldwide. I guess the ultimate answer is like, so what? What happens? What is the significance for consumer subscribers, business subscribers, operators, commentariat like us? Why do we care that it's scaling?
Yeah, I mean, that is the best question, really.
Oh, good.
I suppose you've got to split it up.
Your job, Scott.
That's why I get the big bucks.
I suppose you've got to split it up a little bit. I mean, for one thing, for the industry and for the operators, let's say, it's a kind of it's a strategic event, effectively, moving from an older architecture that was defined and developed 15 years ago to a more modern architecture that will bring... It's basically new capabilities, and then that gives you a potential way forward to introduce new services on the back of it. So
and for people who because I know sometimes people listen to this pod and they're relatively new to the industry. It's called standalone because the first iteration of 5G was called non-standalone because it was 5G radios on a 4G core. Is that correct?
More or less, yeah. I mean, that is correct.
In Scott dumbed down language.
Yeah. But
whereas this time we've got the whole thing's 5G to the max.
One of the issues, there's loads of debates whether it's a good idea or not, but one of the things with non-standalone, like 98%, large percent of the time, your device is basically on a 4G, right? Because it camps, as what it's called. It's registered on the 4G network, so you're not basically using 5G. So it's kind of means
you're saying it's a lie.
Is this why some of these availability metrics from like Ookla and Signal, it's like 5G availability is like 8%, and you're like, 8?
Yeah, exactly.
It's supposed to be providing it across 80% of the country.
Yeah, exactly, because you're actually camped on a LTE, and so it would be nice if with this new network you could actually use it as your base network and be camped. And the implication of this is, I mean, you're not necessarily going to notice this as a user, by the way, so it could come to that. What it means for the customer is a little bit also different to the operator strategy side, because they're a little bit, there's a bit of, they're the same thing ultimately, right? Because companies are all about their customers in principle.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of a kind of, say, delay or a period to actually turn the capability into something a customer would want.
What is just if you're an operator and you've got standalone and you're trying to either, I don't know if people are doing this, to be honest with you. I think BT talked about doing it at first, but then it sounds like they've moved away from it. But charge a premium or get people onto new devices. What's the kind of pitch though, really?
Well, mostly what you see, what I've seen, I don't think it's totally across the board, but largely SA is bundled with a higher value plan and a new device at take up. So it's kind of through the carrier channel, really. And
right.
That's partly because they think they want to monetize, and they also want to control the experience a bit, because it is a lot of new radio technology. They don't want just everyone getting on it and having problems, and so they want to have a phasing where, they know this device, they've tested it, it's verified. Apple has to sign you off, for example. You can't sell iPhone on SA until Apple have done the test and signed off your network.
Right.
That's been a big issue actually in the industry.
Okay.
Apple's kind of,
because they just don't want a bad user experience associated with them.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to market as well, I feel. No?
I mean, SA, marketing it directly is going to be kind of difficult. How are you going to notice it, really? Like,
are they marketing it as advanced, 5G advanced? Is that typically a tag?
That's the next thing after SA.
Okay,
but you can't
Plus.
Right.
But
Deluxe.
Oh God, this is making me think of this horrible Black Mirror thing I watched last night, where some woman had a brain tumor, and it's the season 7 one. She basically gets her.
I remember.
What do they do about this brain tumor? And
that's it. Yeah, I remember.
This company comes
quite
and says, "Well, we can create a kind of digital twin of that bit of the brain, operate on it, put that in, but she's going to be connected to the cloud, basically."
And she has to subscribe.
She'll have to subscribe to stay alive, and then it's
it.
like after a while she starts having problems and like repeating adverts. And they're like, "Well, you've got to upgrade now to the comfort plan."
It's a really good concept, that one. Yeah, and so they're always once she's dependent on them, they start hiking up the price of the subscription, and they start, if she can't pay it, they start feeding adverts through her brain that she then just blurts out to random people
while she's in the middle of a class teaching kids.
That's a really good.
Mention something and she'll like, "Did you know that you can buy this fruit, this cereal?"
Yeah, that's one of his better dystopian efforts.
I read that Volkswagen
recently
wanted to do subscriptions to unlock the full power of their electric cars. That's insane.
Right.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that goes on with cars where they build some latent capability in there, and then after you bought the car, they give you the option of paying a subscription to unlock this shit.
I had seen like the heated seats in BMW, because like, you only subscribe, I guess, in the winter. But then this is power, like the engine is there, but they were like, no.
Well, everyone wants subscriptions. Ultimately, most businesses, what they really want is just regular recurring revenue, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they'll find all sorts of sneaky ways to do it, and that's what that Black Mirror did such a good job of, like,
it's spoofing on the whole, like, Google. It starts off for free, and then it's like, hang on a minute, you need some more storage. Well, pay this.
It gets back to that shitification that I think we chatted about on a pod you were on before.
Yeah. That's
but I mean,
over the internet, hasn't it?
The standalone stuff, which hasn't, because your point of your blog is like it's starting to take off now. Why is it take? Because it's like you say, it's 5 years in. Why have people taken so long to get to it if it's so good? The telcos.
Well, you've got to build a great network. You've got to put a lot of money and investment into your 5G RAN. You've got to build out a telco cloud platform.
Right.
Then you've got to integrate all the different 5G core network functions. You've got to get devices. You've got to test it. You've got to build a customer proposition. There's a lot that goes into it. And I think partly one of the reasons that it's starting to scale is devices are here and they're capable. Operators have done a lot of the initial round of investment and engineering, and they're finally getting a bit of bandwidth and time, and because the operators themselves are pretty constrained by their engineering resource and how many people they got and what they can prioritize and so forth. So as the technology mature and there's better knowledge and skills and best practice they can follow, that's another reason why I think we're at a point where we'll see it become more widespread. But keep it in check as well. I think it's going to play out over quite a long time. There's, for many people, with their phone, they're quite happy checking the weather, bit of email, see the sports scores.
Just download a movie in 10 seconds instead of
They've kind of
14.
got what they want to some extent, haven't they? But I guess if you guys brought up the car thing, it's a little bit like if you say I drive quite an old car. It's got manual window wind-ups and stuff like that.
That is a very old car.
It's actually a classic. It's £1 million.
What is it? Tell us what car it is.
It's not £1 million. It's a VW Polo.
But old school one.
Not that old, but it's
But they've been going for a while. That brand.
Yeah. But anyway, the thing is, if you're in your car and you're sort of used to it, and it's fine. But then you go and sit in. I've got a friend who does car reviews, a bit like you guys do for phones, but for cars. Picks me up the other day, and you get in the new car, that he's just got off the PR to go and and you're just it's like
amazing. It's like being in Star Wars.
Spaceship.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I even have that. I've got a newer car. I've got a Ford Focus. It's got electric windows and it's got a screen with sat nav and all that shit. But then the hire car I had in Spain just had so many more bells and whistles. To be honest, it's a bit weird. I had to spend about the first couple of days on holiday working out how to turn half the fucking thing off.
So
they were doing my head in.
But like incrementally, to him, when he gets a new car, it's like, well, this is a bit like the other one.
But
to me, I'm like, Jesus, man, this is...
it's like if you were still on the iPhone 5 and you upgraded to the
that's
iPhone
the thing.
16.
If you've got an iPhone that's that
14.
years old...
Mine's a 14, so I'm not going to much of a difference with the 16, I'm guessing.
Probably 2 or 3 generations. Once you get to 4 or 5, though, you're going to notice a big change, right?
But but one of the problems people like Apple, there's a bit of a tangent, but one of the problems people like Apple have got, I was reading it was a podcast I listened to, a guy's written a thing about Apple. A lot of it's about how Apple basically single-handedly turbocharged the whole Chinese technology supply chain by investing so much in it. But he points out that it's really hard in the current era, in the Tim Cook era. There's not much innovation going on with Apple, and there actually isn't that much of a difference between today's iPhone and one from 4 years ago. Whereas earlier on in the cycle, the incremental changes were huge. Yeah, and it's not necessarily Apple's fault. It's just the form factor matured incredibly quickly.
Well, it's like I was talking about a few pods ago. Is the video games? You look at a video game from '95 and 2000, and 5 years, it's incredible. But you look at a video game from 2020, and now it's pretty much the same.
Because they're all kind of photorealistic anyway.
Yeah, the original iPhones are basic compared with what you get now. But you look back over 5 years, it's...
Yeah.
Definitely 5G's in that sort of category, mobile anyway. It was amazing, really quick advance, and now it's kind of incremental, bit by bit.
Like the things you were saying that are difficult to do to get for operators to get to it, like the telco cloud part of it, which is very much on the sort of core side, and then RAN investment. Is that... The RAN investment sounds like it would be a bigger problem to me, no? Because you're talking about basically having to put in a huge amount of equipment potentially, or have more sites, which is a big cost.
To do standalone, you've got to have really good coverage, because your device, in principle, is... This
is the thing I've always struggled to get to grips with a little bit, this sort of coverage issue. It's like if you've got reasonably good coverage on your non-standalone 5G, why all of a sudden when you go into standalone 5G is there a coverage problem?
Yeah, what is that?
So when your device is, when you're not even using it, it's in your pocket or your bag or whatever, it's what's called, it's just sitting on the network in idle, right? But at certain intervals, there's control messages, signaling messages to the phone to say, where are you, what you're doing, hey, you've got a WhatsApp, let me just send it to you.
So government could keep an eye on you.
It's not even that, it's just so that your phone is sort of registered on the network. It knows where you are
being facetious.
to send you the information, right? So, but all of that is happening on the 4G control plane. So that's why you need to be able to do all those messages. So you need, I mean,
that's the coverage bit.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's a whole extra level of intensity for that sort of ambient messaging that goes on with standalone. Is that what you're saying?
It's not some. It's just that you need to have the coverage. If you're going to do it on a 5G, you've got to have the low band frequency allocated to it, so that
rather than
the mid band or the high band
4G.
Oh right, yeah.
So the band you're sitting on to do all that stuff is usually 4G, and you only go onto 5G when you're sort of engaging with it in a 5G coverage area or something. But you're going to always be on it in standalone mode. So I think that was the thing. Bori Ekholm of Ericsson was saying the two things. He said the same thing. He said the two things you need are a lot of good mid-band rollout. If it's not mid-band necessarily, and the core network to be sort of upgraded, which is a problem in Europe because there doesn't seem to be much investment in mid-band as far as they're concerned. But compared with America and China.
I mean, compared with America and China, that is clearly the case.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, it's incremental, isn't it, in Europe as well? There's a few more percentage.
But is there anybody doing it
years?
In terms of the big guys who are doing it, like Geo, I think you mentioned, the Chinese operators seem to do it right almost from the start. And then I think you were saying this week in a post that AT&T's kind of getting quite active about it now. I think they were talking about it at that conference where the CTO was chatting about what they're up to. Is there anybody in Europe that's kind of doing it at scale apart from BT? Is there anybody who's kind of made a push into it? Or
well, I think this is why BT think they can be the best SA network in Europe, because they know the sort of competitive field is like they've got a chance to kind of get in ahead of it.
Yeah.
There are lots of, there are quite a few deployments, but they haven't really scaled yet. They haven't quite got good enough, haven't got enough devices and so forth. So it's, no one's really killing it in Europe, I would say, yet.
No, we're kind of expecting the last few decades, we expect Europe to be a bit behind like East Asia and North America, don't we?
Seems to be in mobile, yeah. I mean, it's one of these things, though, that you could look at in different ways. Like in the Chinese side of things, you guys have been courted by Huawei, so I'm sure you're all familiar with this.
I can't remember
they
it in the
went,
conversation.
In China, they went full bore for 5G, invested, gigantic amounts. And, arguably went a bit early and overinvested, a bit too keen. And it hasn't, they've built great networks, but it hasn't sort of made their businesses much better.
Yeah.
In a way, maybe they went a bit too soon, you could argue that.
But isn't there a case that, I mean, this is from the people who would say this, I guess, but the Ericssons and the Nokias go, if you look at China where they've made investments in standalone, there's loads of private 5G and there's all these examples of WYSI use cases that have come along. I don't really know because I don't go to China, and you're just hearing it from, those guys or...
I mean, China's become more opaque over the years, certainly to me. I mean, I used to go a few times and have a little bit of a insight and feel for it.
But a market
Honestly,
that's had it for 5 years, you'd think maybe there's some interesting stuff that's come out of it by now.
There's definitely some quite interesting things that have come out of it, but you're still like, their share prices and their revenues aren't, getting the benefit necessarily.
Oh, right.
So,
and that opacity that you talk about, I presume, is a byproduct of the geopolitical argy-bargy.
I think it's a bit that,
right.
And I think it's a bit also...
Don't get him started, Gabe.
Oh, don't worry, there's plenty of time for geopolitics later.
It's also a bit like just me personally, because I don't have that much to do with Chinese operators or vendors.
Right.
I mean, I have a little bit, but not much.
Fair enough.
Is it a case like...
Which is a shame in some ways, because they're extremely capable companies.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest, most advanced market in the world, isn't it?
Certainly the biggest.
Yeah. It's right up there, though, in terms of tech as well, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know, because I haven't been here for 5 years.
Yeah, you get there and there's flying spaceships
everywhere.
See, that's the difference between analysts and journalists. We'll just reckon shit without any knowledge to back it up. We just go, fuck it. That sounds plausible.
Last time I was there, I was in Shenzhen, though, and I've got to go back at least 5 years, probably.
I was there 10 years ago, yeah.
But even then, they had a lot of electric vehicles, and you could kind of see that the electrical, in terms of electric vehicles, that was much more
Yeah.
ahead of the
Is it
Western
BYD?
markets.
Is that the big brand?
No,
Yeah.
they didn't
kick-
exist back then.
They're kicking ass now, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'm even hearing ads for them in the UK.
Oh,
Do
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what we could
And
do?
apparently they're much cheaper than like Teslas and shit.
We could
Yeah.
do something really journalistic and ask Huawei if it's got any really interesting use cases to do with 5G standalone.
There you go,
Taking
Huawei,
off
if you're
in,
listening.
China. I mean, that's the sort of thing they probably would want to comment
They'll
on.
come up with a 97 slide
Yeah.
deck
Yeah,
and
well.
stuff, but it's a
Be
question.
careful
Of,
what you wish for with them.
but it's a question of like, what's how, you
How real is it?
want to have you want to get some double sourcing really and things like this, and you
Yes, I think that's fair
Totally.
enough.
you make the point about private networks, but it's a whole different setup there in that there's no spectrum allocation for people to do it on their own. So
Yeah.
obviously the the
Yeah.
telcos are going to be a little bit more involved, whereas here in particularly in UK, but Europe, US,
Germany.
there's Germany, there's great spectrum options. So
Yeah.
it's not they're not quite the same comparison.
Is there in the US so T-Mobile's quite ahead on standalone, yeah?
Yeah, I mean they've been flying with it. I mean,
So have
they're
they
most-
seen? Because that's an easier market to look at and analyse and see stuff that's coming out of. And
Yeah, do you know anything about America?
you know what's going on
Yeah. Certainly do, because I've been to America quite a lot, and I've obviously talked to a lot of American companies. T-Mobile's a good example because it's the most valuable telco in the world. It's one of the only ones that's had massive capital growth. It's had massive customer growth, high customer satisfaction, great services. It's the
Yeah, it looks like an internet company. It's stock.
And they've had that disruptive marketing and shouty pink T-shirts and shit like that.
People with long hair
Yeah.
running it.
Yeah.
That's really why
Jackets.
it's successful. Yeah.
It's the pink T-shirts.
But I think
long hair.
we could come to this another time. Their whole messaging now is we're going to turn from challenger to champion.
Right.
I think that's going to prove a lot. I mean, what they've done is amazing. There's no point underplaying it. I think to become a champion is a different order of sort of challenge in
Indeed.
a way. This is why we're going way off track
Sorry,
a little bit.
sorry.
But this is why they're pushing on this AI RAN and this NVIDIA partnership and all of that. That's these are sort of more R&D related, more pushing the boundaries type. Whereas before they've been, using established technology really well, essentially, and playing a great game. What they're now trying to do is set the board a little bit themselves ahead of time, and that's just harder. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. But have they done, because they've obviously been very successful in the consumer market, and every time they publish results, you can see they seem to have 1 million new customers. I don't know where all these people come from.
yes, like
Because I know that it's a big country, but it's like every quarter there's like millions of new customers that have turned up.
It's
at
immigrants.
T-Mobile.
Oh, wait, no, it's not.
Well, it isn't anymore, obviously.
Maybe it'll drop off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Trump's closed the border.
But in either that market or in the business sector, which is the one that people were talking about initially to do with 5G, that's where we should get excited, is the business sector. Is there stuff going on there that's happening?
yeah. I mean, they have T-Mobile itself has a bunch of examples of things they've done. Probably the biggest one is this thing they call T-Priority,
Right.
which is a 5G network slice for public safety, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they've got they've got quite a good
So you have to have standalone to do this slicing stuff.
as an example. That's one of the key capabilities. And they've got a big load of examples now of things they've done. They haven't quite blown the doors off financially or anything yet, but they're sort of setting the way forward to do it. And so
Yeah, well, network slicing,
you've got
as
to-
long as 5G's been around, that's been a buzzword that's been associated with it, isn't it? Network slicing.
yeah, and it hasn't kind of scaled yet. It's been more buzz than actual.
Yeah.
Indeed.
But it's
someone like
gradually
us
getting
to do that.
interesting. Even with T-Mobile, we were at Network X Americas, and there were a good few this is back in May,
Yeah.
so not that long ago. They're talking a lot about this. The pretty senior technical people there, and they were like, "Yeah, we're into it. It's working for us, but there's quite a lot more to come. We're gonna, there's a bunch more capabilities and things that are going to come in the next year, 2 years that we're really excited about. Making it more automated, making sure you get the different prioritizations or guarantees or what have you over the radio access. So they're pretty pumped on it. I think the other operators are because you mentioned AT&T because he was at the investor conference.
Yeah. Come with the bank.
They said they've got millions of subscribers now on their 5G core. So that's a kind of a piece of anecdata that it's starting to scale, right?
Data, love it.
And they've
have to use this more often.
And they've been breadcrumbing that. Like we already knew.
I think we need to define anecdata. So presumably it's a portmanteau of anecdotal data, yeah? Compressed.
Yeah.
So what's the difference in anecdotal data and like not anecdotal data? Are you like hedging your bet? You're saying it's data, but it's I'm kind of pulling it out my arse.
Irrelevant?
It's anecdotes made to sound a little better, you know.
Okay, right. Okay.
You know, but
irrelevant is the right word?
No, not irrelevant. But you build up enough anecdotes, enough of a story that becomes a pattern. Is it quite data? Not really, because
so like if it was legal, it would be circumstantial evidence rather than like hard evidence or something like that.
I guess it's a lower volume of evidence. It's the main probably difference. But for example, if you do a I don't know, you do a survey or you take call logs or whatever, then you've got data, right? It's hard data.
Hard data, yeah.
Whereas anecdata is...
It's more qualitative.
Yeah, it's built up out of... which is, for most analysts, well, it depends. Analysts are quite a broad group. But
conversations? Oh.
Yeah, it's lots of conversations. It's a stock in trade, and for journalists, right? And, you know, most people in the industry, anecdate is their kind of... It's the glue that keeps it all together.
No, with you.
Really.
I just never referred to it by
that whole
specifically
core
that
thing's
term.
a bit of a mystery at the moment, isn't it, really, AT&T?
Well, they've been breadcrumbing it for a while that things are going better than people have been reporting and saying. And I was saying earlier, I've been going back into Twitter a bit as well lately. There's a whole bunch of people there that I kind of follow that are a very subculture of people who like spot towers and send their readings in and their, you know, all of that. But it's fantastic
tower spotters, brilliant
primary research, because from that you can see that, you know, the state of the different networks in different regions, what what vendors use where, what carriers are deployed, who's using SA, and from that it's pretty clear that SA on Verizon AT&T is pretty widely available now, pretty widely used.
Right.
They haven't quite given it the big PR push yet, but if it's coming out in the investor comments, I don't think that's going to be far away. And it's all to do with really essentially the new iPhones are doing it. And so, you know, gradually it's going to roll through the base.
They've got a sort of odd core network setup, haven't they? Because they went with Microsoft and Affirmed, which, from what I've been told, is a business that's up for sale at the moment. In the same way,
Affirmed got denied. Hey, sorry, I'm here all week.
And is it public cloud? Isn't it public cloud? It's a public cloud provider doing it in our data centers mainly, but some of it's in the public cloud kind of thing. It's all a bit, that whole decision they took is an odd one. I don't know, it puts them in a strange position, I think.
It's sort of...
They're the only guys, I think, still using Affirmed really in a big way.
I don't know how much they're using Affirmed. They had it for their cricket MVNO, didn't they? Or their sub-brand cricket they were using Affirmed for.
Right.
I don't know how much they were ever using it in their main core.
As opposed to... Well,
it's fair to say they haven't been exactly highly communicative around the specifics.
Yeah.
And so
I was under the impression that their main core was like an Affirmed core. And
I wouldn't say I know for sure. I wasn't really.
Know for sure.
I think it was more their cricket.
Because Microsoft's deal that it did with AT&T was a big one. They actually bought a bunch of core network assets to get up to speed on how to do the core network, and then they had their own takeovers of Metaswitch and Affirmed.
Yeah,
they've sold Metaswitch. They're apparently trying to sell Affirmed. It hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Which raises questions about what happens to the customers using Affirmed products. And meanwhile, there's these weird movements going on, like Sean Hackle, who we had on the podcast, who was one of the main people at Microsoft on the 5G side. He's gone to AT&T. So
he's gone to AT&T because he was Verizon, wasn't he?
He's at AT&T now.
Yeah.
And this is on the record, so I can say it. But the three kind of decision to, which almost seems a bit redundant now that the Vodafone 3 thing's gone ahead, but they for a long time are on Affirmed applications, but on Nokia infrastructure. And when they were looking around for a new core network a few months ago, I think it's been going on actually for a year and a half, and they eventually took the decision to go with Ericsson on like a full stack. One of the reasons for that was they understood a firm was up for sale and it wasn't going to get supported anymore, and it wasn't going to be developed in the same way. So you're talking about going to things like 5G Advanced. Basically, you don't really know what's going to happen. You want the certainty of having that roadmap. So I just find the whole AT&T. Maybe they're not as dependent on a firm as I think they are.
My impression was they weren't major. It was more on the infrastructure, the
Right.
cloud infrastructure and management and all that side of things.
Yeah.
And it's still interesting that they've gone with Azure, right? But they seem pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
I don't know enough, and some of what I know is all kind of like gossip and snippets that probably best.
Not
Same-
even anecdata.
Same here.
Not even anecdata in that sense.
What's less than anecdata? Shite data.
Well, it's probably the good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, but the stuff that you can't.
The inside track.
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
Of thing.
I was going to ask, I want to sort of bring it all the way back round, and then also invite a sort of little looking forward segue, because
Well, I had a question.
AT&T share price is going really well, for example. It's everything all on.
were you about to say, Pierre?
No, I had
Yeah,
a
they're
question
doing a
for
lot
Gabe as well.
better
but
Oh, no, go ahead, mate. Go ahead.
No, this is going back in the conversation when you were saying that Europe was lagging behind. Is it a case like, a little bit like when we built roads in a way here in the 1700s, and then when they started fresh in the US, they went for the grid system, much more efficient, etc. Is it because they have an advantage in like topography that we don't have, kind of thing? It's like I always imagine like bringing 5G to Rome must be a nightmare. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Possibly a little bit. I mean, I don't know. It's the kind of way it's characterised, or Europe's behind that. I think that's probably not the right characterisation either.
it's more difficult, I feel, here. No, I don't know. Maybe it's just.
I don't know. There's less. There's less money to be put at it. The way things are, set up at the moment, and it's split among more players and so forth. So it's a bit more fragmented. I think what you're talking more about is if you want to deploy in historic cities, there's a whole load of restrictions because you can't have antennas and all of that around. Yeah, that's a different kind of...
Which is a problem at the Ryder Cup.
Just
well, it's a problem. If you look out London
open
from
spaces,
our office here, if you go and look
Yeah.
on the top floor and you can see for anyone who can't see, you see the whole riverscape along central London. It's an amazing view.
Cool view from our office.
You don't see hardly any cell phone antennas or towers, right?
Macro cells, yeah.
Even though it's a very busy area and everyone would like to be there and so forth, and it's because the planning doesn't want it all, they don't want to ruin the riverscape because it's, one of London's best features. So yeah, it's same in Rome or anywhere like that.
You set them on rooftops, though, don't they?
You do have them, but if you have a look,
disguise them as bushes or something.
well, they set them a block or two back, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that, that's the sort of way around
and
it.
trees.
That must be good enough, though. It's not like
They
they're...
build them into lampposts, don't they?
Yeah.
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 Sorry, and, one more question then that we just said trees actually. Is there like a environmental angle to all this? Because it's like new gear, we're not recycling as much. It's all fresh stuff. Basically.
Don't know if it's that much. I mean, environmental is a big word as well because it's like, do you mean aesthetics or power consumption or recycling the components or buying second hand or...
Yeah.
They have all those little like layers of an onion of it as well. What do they call it when they describe not just your own carbon footprint, but that of your suppliers and your suppliers' suppliers and all that?
The different types of category,
Yeah.
scope.
Scope, that was it. That was the word. Yeah, all those
Scope
scopes.
emissions there, Scott.
Right, that's an emissions thing, is it?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Well, yeah, it's just like we're not reusing what we've had already kind of thing anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
It's a very complicated question because obviously everyone wants to reuse their sites and facilities and towers, quite often antennas, but then sometimes you can't because 5G you had to build a lot of extra because the way the massive MIMO radios deployed, you had to build little extra scaffolding for the towers so they wouldn't get caught on the building edge. There's loads of stuff like that going on.
But I think a lot of if you're getting at the US over Europe, a lot of it's to do with the structure of the market as well, yeah? Like it's a massive country with 3 big telcos, whereas we're kind of... You've got to buy into this to some degree. I know the telcos are going to overemphasize this angle, but
there's
it's a
700 million people in Europe.
with
it's a big market
tiny
too.
little...
Yeah,
it is.
how
but
many
it's
operators?
Every you talk to Vodafone, they'll go, every
Exactly.
market we're in, we need a separate core network.
Yeah.
We need to have resources to support that. Whereas it's just you get sort of economies of scale in a huge country that they just can't realise here.
When the average revenue per customer is double in the US to it is in Europe, so it's a sort of a different.
And they charge way more.
No, not as many MVNOs.
That's the thing.
Not as many
Yeah.
MVNOs,
So it
although that
costs-
might change with Trump phone or whatever it's called.
And then
Yeah, what happened to that Trump phone? Do you remember that? That golden
He's changed
fucking
his
phone.
mind.
Jesus Christ, the stuff that
It's like
bloke comes out.
Trump vodka was also the same thing in the 90s. Yeah, go on.
So,
Now, Gabe was going to say something.
oh, sorry, go on, mate. Sorry.
I can't remember what it was now, but just to sort of defend Europe as the homeland, I suppose. You know, some parts of Europe have got amazing service and some have got terrible as well. If you go to, you know...
What's Slovakia like, Ian?
Bizarrely enough, it's not very good in the village, and then if I go walking up Skoroshina, which is like the mountain that's nearby, and that's a 4-mile walk, sort of uphill, you don't come across much apart from some bears every now and again.
That sounds like a proper walk.
Yeah, and the coverage is absolutely amazing. I could like stream videos or watch Netflix up at the top of Skoroshina if I wanted to. I don't quite get it. What's going on?
It must be. I would guess.
Someone's put a base station there.
Yeah, with
and
a
no
low
one's in the
frequency
area.
and just tons of fucking coverage. And I guess because it's not very built up, there's nothing to obstruct the.
Yeah.
the
But whereas
big tall towers is another thing
Yeah.
they do in Europe and America that they don't do in UK, for example. UK's got limits, and it's a big
on
problem.
the height of
Yeah.
towers.
Yeah, because
yeah, like you can't along track sides of railways. They couldn't build the masts above a certain height. I remember
just
a few
planning
years ago.
in general everywhere. There's I forget what the level is, but it's lower than you would want basically, and everyone else just go higher. And it's
We're very good at getting in our own way in the UK.
yeah. That's
They've done
one
some
example
things
of
that
it.
have sort of backfired. From what I understand from talking to people like Luke Kehoe at Ookla, is like lowering the fees that you could charge for that landlords charge for.
Yeah, there's a bit of a story about that. Some landlords are going, then fuck it, we won't. If you don't let us charge enough, we won't let you go on.
That was the unseen, unforeseen effect of it. They hoped that by lowering the sort of rates that it would sort of spur investment, but the landlords themselves were like, well, if we can't get as much money, then we'll build gardens there instead or use it for something else. So, and BT sort of downplayed that as a problem when I talked to them about it, but Virgin Media too said, yeah, that's definitely been an issue. So you get different perspectives from different telcos, but yeah. I mean, the US, I just get the impression the US, it's sort of easier sometimes to steamroller things through in the private sector.
Typically, to generalise massively, you tend to assume the US is going to be more...
Less red tape.
Yeah, more business-friendly, more entrepreneur-friendly than Europe.
There's quite a lot of red tape, though, in some areas of the US. So
yeah, no, they got plenty.
You know,
and it varies more from state to state.
Hence
apparently,
Musk,
it's pretty difficult in California. There's a lot of red tape there, from what I gather.
I was going to. Are we going to move it on?
I'm trying to, but if you want one more, this is the juncture. This is always at the pod. About halfway through the pod, I get to a stage where my little spider sense goes, "Shit, we better move it on, or we're not going to cover anything else."
We're definitely not halfway.
But then there's about we're not far short of halfway. But then there's a bit of an arm wrestle because people haven't finished talking about the main thing anymore. Yeah, and I'll certainly give you another
Gabe's
shot.
on, so he's like,
But anyway, I was just explaining to Gabe that this is normal. This me trying to move it on and you going, well, I'm fucking finished yet. So go ahead, mate.
So
having had a little strop about it, go ahead.
What I was going to ask was the whole standalone thing. Is that related to, remember when the Huawei swap out stuff was first happening back in 2019, 2020? Mm-hmm. And this is something, again, that's to do with this coverage thing I never quite got. And you've explained it well, and then I forget about it in a few weeks and have to ask you again. But this, you tend to go with the provider you've used for 4G when you're doing 5G. And I remember a lot of the executives sort of in these parliamentary hearings saying, if we took out the 5G supply, we have to replace the 4G supplier as well. Mm-hmm. And I never quite got that. Is that to do with a kind of hooking it to the 4G core, or is there another reason for that? Because I know 2G, 3G and 4G use this push with single RAN to do it on the same kind of platform and infrastructure, but I never quite got why when you're building a 5G network it necessarily needed to be the same vendor that you've used for 4G, and the implication was it'd be very hard to actually move to someone completely new. And in India, Reliance Jio does seem to have done that anyway, so...
Yeah, there's quite a lot wrapped into that as well, though,
right.
To fully unpick it. But basically, you can do it without, and there's different strategies, etc. But it is more difficult.
Right.
I think in India they've done it by just going big on 5G, basically.
Right.
That's sort of how they solved that. Was do loads of it. and then you don't have to worry about.
It's like an overlay, but on a big scale.
Yeah.
Right.
What are we saying? Am I allowed to butt in? What I was going to say, just to sort of move it on towards sort of concluding that particular segment, Gabe. One thing I reflect on at the start, I'd just gone, "What's the point of 5G SA?" And you've addressed it a bit, but I think the fact that this is no criticism of you, but I don't think you said something that I can recall where I like, "Oh, that's the point of it."
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there's lots of little points to it, but there isn't like a killer point or whatever. And I was just reviewing the post and a few people chatting on your post. There was one from a regular podcast guest, another analyst called Dean Bubley. Because one thing I'm hearing is that, just to condense what he said, that maybe this is just a sort of B2B thing and they're not that bothered about, especially low-end prepaid users on standalone and that sort of thing. And then that got a great big thread of a bunch of people getting involved, which is quite cool. And you sort of you said a bit lower down, this is probably the biggest barrier to scaling SA support for unlocked SIM-only devices, which is an interesting angle. Anyway, I won't go through them all because you got a ton of comments on it. But I just thought, to wrap that up, do you concede my point that it is still difficult, even for someone like you, who will be one of the people who knows the most about this, to fully articulate why SA is a compelling thing, why we're doing it. It's obviously happening, but it seems to me just in a more natural technological evolution sort of way. There doesn't seem to be a big driver. It's just that it's inevitable, just like all technological progress is inevitable, just like your next year's phone's going to be higher spec than last year's phone sort of thing. But, have I missed something about the compelling argument in favour of 5G SA?
I mean, the fact that things get better and better isn't by accident. Like it's effort and success. So that would be a good thing, pretty much, I would say. But also, I don't think there's going to be certainly for consumer, there's going to be one sort of killer app.
Yeah, don't worry. I always cringe when I use it.
There's going to be one thing that go, this is so much better than what I had before.
Yeah.
I think it will build up incrementally, and what you'll find is the service that the top end are getting. It's I think that's why I gave the car reference. When you get into a brand new car, it is a different feeling.
Yeah, and you weren't necessarily crying out for all those features, but once you got them,
you're kind of I like this now.
Yeah.
Damn, my car's got air.
I hear you.
So I think it's going to be a little bit more like that. The more compelling part of it, though, I think, is at industry level, where now the capability is giving you a route forward to start experimenting, start turning these capabilities into services.
Yeah.
Because until you've done that, you've really been stuck.
You've got to have the foundation.
You've got to do it to have the opportunity, in a way, to go forward. It's been a little bit stuck on this 4G paradigm, which is why you haven't seen, everyone's a bit like, well, it's a bit like 4G. Well, yeah, because it's on a 4G architecture and it's stuck in that world a bit. So it's a shift fundamentally in the generations. I concede it's going to take a long while to sort of emerge and become products and services, and they might not, they might end up, we don't really know, but they might get bundled in with some other application, for example. You don't necessarily know how it will come out, but you might start.
Do you think it was a mistake to have this split in the first place, where they decided to have a non-standalone and standalone version? Because it was quite controversial.
As opposed to extending the whole cycle.
I seem to remember Enrique Blanco at Telefonica sort of being a bit of an opponent of the idea that there should be a non-standalone, and he was very much pushing the concept of
who's the guy? Ibrahim, the Telus guy.
Ibrahim Gideon.
Gideon. He was funny. He was very entertaining about it as well. I mean, I think
he's very entertaining in general, that bloke.
And he said, as soon as they said there's going to be non-standalone, I was like, that's it. Nothing's going to happen for 5 years.
Right. So he's kicking the can down the road.
And he was right. I mean, so I know you want to get on to.
No, it's all right, mate. Go for it.
The other part, it's a good question in a way, because the 3GPP studies into 6G architectures just begun.
I was going to steer you that way anyway, so you read my mind.
That's just begun, and they've had the workshops, and there's been a lot of preparatory work in the industry, and everyone chatting with each other, and what should we do different. And one of the main big conclusions is
to have standalone.
6G will be standalone from day one and single architecture only.
Yeah.
So that's kind of there's lots of support for that view in all the submissions, and so as the study goes on, the implication
you couldn't have non-standalone 6G, could you?
Well, you've got a 6G core hitched to the 6G RAM.
Oh, so we're saying that. Oh, so it will be a whole new core again.
Well, I don't think it will because the whole new core, but it's very much an evolution of the 5G standalone.
Okay.
It's not like they're going from. The big thing about the 5G standalone core is it's cloud native and all this, and it's
I get
you have the
so,
cloud platform.
So where that was a paradigm shift, this will be an evolution.
Potentially, yeah. So anyway, that's the sort of, if that's the framing, you go, oh, well, that's because having NSA and all these options maybe wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of revisionism, isn't there? And we all do it. We kind of go, oh, now we know that hindsight's a great thing, and it is a great thing because you can do it differently. But I suppose, I don't know, at the time, there were reasons, and NSA, for all its drawbacks, which have become apparent as longer you get stuck on it, at the same time, it allowed a really fast introduction and ramp of 5G.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, it's like it was a compromise, but maybe it's a good thing.
Well,
But I think, and I've said this before, non-standalone 5G was kind of 5G in name only anyway.
yeah, but Scott, where would Huawei and Nokia and Ericsson have been now if they'd not been
They
able
hadn't
to
had
sell
people buying all that shit
a load
5
of
years
crap?
ago. A load of crap. That's a bit harsh, mate. He said that, Nokia and Ericsson, not me.
Yeah, but I didn't mean crap in the
No, I
negative
know.
sense.
And all the phones and the chipsets and so forth.
Yeah.
But then think of it another way. You've got to have product volume and sales in an industry for it to carry on being alive and investing in things like that.
This is the real problem. Like when we've had you on the pod before, I suspect Ian, we've been a bit hard on 5G and going, it's a bit overhyped and it's kind of been a letdown. And you've pushed back in your erudite, understated way, but nonetheless assertive. And I always thought fair play, because as we were just chatting about before we started recording, it's very easy to just carp from the sidelines and just go, well, it's all been a bit of a fucking letdown, hasn't it? Meanwhile, there's thousands of people and billions of dollars going into R&D and development and trying to make this thing good. It just so happens that this time there haven't been much in the way of fireworks around it, like there was with the introduction of proper mobile broadband with 4G, which changed a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So I totally take that on board, and I think you're right to push back that way, and Rome wasn't built in a day, and we can't expect every technological evolution to come with a lot of razzmatazz and sort of life-changing stuff. But I do suspect, and I've said it on the pod before, if anyone tries to overhype 6G, which, from the what you just said about it now is completely consistent with my assumptions about it, which will be very much an evolutionary step, such that the change of the number from 5 to 6 is, I think, almost a distraction. Because it'll be a linear progression. There's going to be no step change, to the best of my knowledge. But again, correct me if I've.
Yeah, that is.
So shaping up.
It's quite a difficult question though, because in many ways I just would go straightforward agree with you. But one thing is, the vantage point of 2025 is one thing, right? We're in a sort of, it's to do with where we're sitting and where we're seeing it from now.
Yeah.
Inevitably, there's going to be a lot of hype builds to 6G the closer you get. It's just the nature of business and marketing and justifying your project, and
and you both made good points earlier.
So the hype will build, whatever way you look at it, but also you need hype in some ways to kind of help things along.
Yes,
it gets out of hand, and it's going to get out of hand, no question.
Yeah, for sure.
So you need,
and it'll probably be the Yanks that kick it off, because that's what they do, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean,
or the Chinese.
But you need a bit of that.
But the Yanks are more hypey than the Chinese, I think.
But the other interesting thing, though, from the 3GPP workshop on it, most people are saying what you said, essentially, let's move it on, nudge it on. It'll be, be nice and quiet, and there'll be a little evolution. Fine. The Chinese submissions were a lot different. They were like, guys, we've got to redesign this thing. This is,
okay.
We've got to really,
new era interface and all that.
We've got to be AI ready. We've got to be AI native. The new era is going to be AI everything. And their point is, well, it's 2025 now when we're looking at it. We've had 5 years really of developing to this point in 6G already. But it's not, you're trying to design a system now that's going to maybe be in its not even peak, but in its sort of prime, in its heyday in 2040.
Yeah.
So like 5G is probably not even going to be in that stage until 2030. Do you see what I mean? So
I do.
You have to be a little bit careful with let's just be so incremental that, you need a little bit of leap, because we're not talking about the next few years. We're talking about 15 years away.
Yeah.
You need to not think so much about short-term stock gains.
It's not the introduction of it, it's when it's been around for 7-8 years.
Well, so what's it going to do? But it's difficult because I think 5G was a bit over-ambitious and it turned out not to work. And so what is the way to get to something that is going to support? Imagine what applications and devices and all of that we have in 2040.
Well, that's the other thing that, and that's the other thing I'll be self-critical of when I'm sort of going, it's all been a bit of a letdown. Some of it is just a failure of imagination on my part to look years ahead and see what sort of things this will enable. But then again, where I'll slightly self-justify there is when the best use cases people are coming up with, things like VR and all that sort of thing, or a network slice for gaming or something like that just don't seem like very big deal use cases.
I think the problem is that some of those step changes that happened, and I don't think they really happened with going from 3G to 4G. It happened going from 2G. It happened with the original 1G mobile phone, and then it became digital with 2G, which was what everybody cared about. And then all of a sudden it was data on the internet. 4G just made it work well, yeah?
Yeah, and there was always that thing of like the even G makes.
But it's like an invention to a person reading about it, because it's like, oh my God, I can get data on my phone. I can use the internet on a mobile device. That sounds like something I'd see in Back to the Future. Whereas if you just talk about it getting faster every year and more capable, it doesn't sound as revolutionary.
And it's not.
But what else can networks do? They can only. That's all they can really do.
Totally.
It's only putting bits down a pipe.
Exactly. It's not even a criticism of them or any individual within the telecoms industry. It's just sometimes, it's our day job. Again, we were chatting about this before, Gabe. It's our day job to be the commentariat, albeit from slightly different sort of starting points as analyst versus journalist. We're kind of incentivized to be a bit more gobby and shoot from the hip a little bit more, whereas you're more thorough. But yes, I think it is incumbent on the commentariat to, call these things out, but be balanced and go, well, it's no one's fault. We're just a little bit frustrated because we've got to come up with copy every day. And sometimes you see these recurring patterns, you're like, fucking hell, why aren't things moving on a little bit more? And that's probably just being self-interested as a journalist.
It's also hard to unpick. Like, I'm always thinking this, is you have to kind of interrogate your own position a bit. Because we might be looking at from telco network point of view, how much business they're doing, etc. But if you think about how there's so many small innovations that have added up to our mobile phones that haven't had really that much network impact, but things like biometric fingerprints or face scan, or touch pay to get on the tube, or there's so many things that have come in that have just integrated massively into our lives.
Agreed.
That, all right, it doesn't make much traffic or huge business for operators, but have had a huge impact on us, on how we sort of live and do things and sort of carry out tasks. And so
that's
that side of it's pretty interesting, I think.
Part of the enduring
Cameras,
frustration.
Everywhere. Live streaming, that's not a thing that's kind of...
Can I tell you a bit of a tangent? One thing I've noticed people doing more and more. I remember when I was like a teenager or a young adult, I'll go in the public transport with like my Walkman or something. I'll be playing the music loud and people get the arsehole, tell me to turn it down. Now, you've got people having fucking video calls.
Without headphones on.
Just shouting. You can hear them all down the carriage. Yeah. We were yesterday when we were coming in for this comedy.
Unacceptable.
There was some geezer having a video call while he's walking through the tube station.
It is unacceptable social etiquette.
I'm not having it, Ian.
Flame for it. Yeah.
So anyway, that's a complete tangent. You just made me think of it. Yeah. No, but you're completely right. That the amounts that we can do. I remember when I first I was a smartphone analyst back in the day before this job. And when I really got my head around the incredible power of the smartphone, at the time I wasn't the only one, but I referred to it as a digital Swiss Army knife, because suddenly sat-nav industry gone, digital photography industry gone, etc., because all these things were just crammed into this one little rectangle that everyone carried in their pocket. And then it's just become more and more useful and more vital, and then you've got like biometric stuff, and it won't be long before it's our passport. Maybe people like Pierre won't have so much hassle when that happens.
Apparently there's something about the new iPhone where only for US passports you can have a digital US passport.
Right. Well, there we go.
Phone.
So
I
we're
think
nearly there.
It's coming, isn't it, for driving licenses as well? Which
Driving
is
licence.
formal ID.
So it'll be everything.
store in your wallet.
And keys. I mean, you will not need to worry about leaving the house with anything except your phone. It will just be everything.
Well, I don't like that at all.
Well, it's a bit scary having all that value in
far
one
too
place.
dependent on one thing.
I already
Yeah.
drive with just my phone and I pay with everything with Apple Pay.
I mean, I want my key separate from my phone. Thanks very much. If
Well,
I use
yeah.
my phone, at least
No,
I've
you're
got
right,
a few
yeah.
things to cancel. I
get
can get
into the
into the
house.
bloody house.
But anyway, I digress. Yes, but that was on your point about how the technology is constantly evolving. We're constantly getting all these capabilities. I guess just to round off this segment, if that's all right with everyone, that one of the reasons people get Ian just shook his head. Shut up, Ian. When I said everyone, I didn't mean you. Is the frustration ever since certainly the 4G era started is all these new technologies, the value in terms of companies extracting revenue and profit from end users always ends up going to big tech rather than the telcos, or so it seems. That's the narrative. I mean, I know telcos still make some money. It's not that they're on skid row, but their growth has been anemic for decades.
Well, they do whinge a lot, though.
And they whinge. Yeah,
to be
that's
honest.
why we know about it, because they're always fucking moaning about it. But, I don't see much sign with 5G Advanced and 6G that's necessarily going to change. Do you agree or disagree with that?
It's a common point of view that you've expressed. I don't think you're going to get some feature in a network that's going to suddenly make a lot more money or change their share prices, things like that. I think you're hanging too much on a
Fair enough.
relatively small technological change that you need massive, society-changing events to generate this growth, right? That's why it's all going to big tech, they've done things that have just had a massive impact on our lives, right? And they've sucked up all the advertising dollars.
And they own all the
or whatever.
platforms.
Yeah, so you can't pick one small piece of mobile network technology and expect your share price to go up as a result of this. But, it's generally right. Telco share prices have been pretty poor, but there's so many reasons for it. It's to do with competition, pricing,
Regulation.
I suppose the big thing, though, is consolidation's coming. I know you talked a lot about this on the podcast. A few back, it was on with Vodafone 3. We had a little round table on, is it going to happen?
Yeah.
So, the other major trend, though, speaking to some of the Omdia fibre analyst guys outside, just for everyone watching, it's just out.
He's just gesturing.
In the
And
office.
by the way, I do like. I was looking at your blog that you published on Light Reading. Now, every time he writes heavy reading, it has to go brackets. Now part of Omdia.
Yeah.
Or you pronounce it Omdia. I don't know which
I don't
is.
know, actually. Omdia.
Yeah, I go heavy on the O. You go on the I. Except in your byline, I've noticed. So Evan's going to be pissed off with you there. It says Gabriel Brown, principal analyst, heavy reading, no brackets, now part of Omdia.
Well, you don't want to overdo it.
I'm grassing you up to Evan now.
Yeah.
You don't want to overdo it.
Anyway, sorry. You say.
We'll come to that if you like. I mean, that's a different subject. But
No, it's all right. It's just me being silly.
They're saying there's this whole big fibre investment. This isn't what I cover, but they're saying there's been a whole big fibre investment. It's going all around the world, country, But it's a lot of that investment is not, it's kind of one time to some degree. In the next few years, once you've passed all the houses, connected them all up, telcos are going to look a lot better as investments again because they've spent all this money on fibre.
Yeah.
And they're just going to be collecting the 30, 40
Which is
pound
why
a month
you get so
forever.
much VC wedge going into it, isn't it? Because
Well, this is BT's big plan.
patient capital.
Yeah.
This is Kirkby's big plan.
Right.
If you look at the financial projections, is that they're spending all this money at the moment to roll it out, but the free cash flow over the next few years goes up
Once it's
quite
there.
substantially. Yeah.
And this is the big advantage of fixed over mobile. You have to refresh it all every
Yeah.
5 years or 7 years or 8 years.
The reason their workforce is getting down so much, by the way, is not to do with AI, and that's the angle in the FT and everything. It's because all these people that are needed to roll out fibre
They sort
won't be needed to roll out fibre once it's been rolled
They're
out.
a lot of the way there.
Yeah.
Maybe they could start rolling out electric car chargers, or
They'll put them on
there'd
that
be
instead.
plenty for them to do.
Yeah.
On the Omdia thing, there's too much to get into, but basically, we're basically going to end up pretty soon becoming rebranded to Omdia.
So heavy reading as a brand's going to go
Heavy
away?
reading as a brand is going
Shit.
away. It's kind of bittersweet for me.
No, I imagine. How long have you been a heavy reading analyst?
Well, since pretty
Since
much
the start?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and
You are heavy reading. No, I know.
yeah.
No one's bigger than heavy.
See,
reading.
we wrote up a story where Sterling did something. Oh God, I can't remember who it was with. But anyway, I saw his name come up. So there's at least 2 people still there.
Yeah, there's a few of us, but we're getting rebranded to Omdia, and this is a big thing that the company's doing because it's got a lot of research and advisory brands. Omdia itself is a made-up brand from probably like
About
a brand
5 years ago.
consultancy or something. It's some sort of Latinate kind of, sounds quite clever, but it's not
I remember
actually
taking
a
a
word.
piss out of it when it first emerged.
But they've consolidated a lot of other brands into it,
Yeah.
and they're doing more, and Heavy Reading's one of them now.
Who was the one they just bought?
Analyst,
Yeah, that's it.
ESG, quite a bunch of them.
I have to say-
Infinetics.
Yeah.
I don't mind the brand name Omdia.
No,
I got used to it now. When it first came out, I was a bit like, what's
I
that?
don't think it's bad. My concern was that if you make that decision to get a new brand and replace a bunch of others that are very recognised, it's a bit risky because people knew Ovum very well, for instance.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a bit risky, but and I'm not the spokesperson from Omdia. This probably, and I'll probably get sacked for this, but
No.
So we know everyone. We'll put in a good word. With
but
Evan.
the idea, as far as I understand it, anyway, is to build up enough of a. It's a big company, Omdia. It's got a lot of analysts. It covers.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised at how much stuff it covers, from cars to screens to display technology to battery, loads of stuff in the tech industry. It's now definitely in the top 3 of tech industry research firms.
Right.
And
And that's competing with people like Gartner and IDC and all that.
Gartner's
sort
the
of
biggest, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's IDC is really that's what
Yeah,
they're
but they
trying
don't come out with any crappy magic quadrants, do they?
thing. Oh, you can't beat a Magic Quadrant.
They've got their own versions of it and things. So
Yeah, but their ones are good.
Magic Quadrant sounds like something you see after you've done too many mushrooms.
but what the idea is, we've got a lot of capabilities. We're trying to build like a critical mass in the brand, right? So that's why I said it's bittersweet. I think it's going to be a good thing to be involved with. Although for me, it's personally a bit.
No, I get
a
it.
bit of a
I get
loss,
it,
but
totally.
I can understand why they're doing it, and we want to have more of an influence as a big research firm.
Well, it's interesting to work for a company as big as Informa, which is one of the biggest business information companies in the world. And then we've all got our little part of it in this little corner of Informa Towers.
In this quadrant.
In this quadrant. It's magic.
Great name for a band.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, you look around, the media part of it's probably the smallest by footprint, but, I think Telecoms.com and Light Reading are 2 of the best. I mean, I would say this, but they're 2 of the best telecoms business titles.
Bloody brilliant.
Fucking brilliant, aren't we? Certainly the best podcast. And anyway, and they cover lots of stuff. And then on the analyst side, as you say, Omdia, they cover lots of stuff. And part of that is by M&A. I mean, Light Reading and Heavy Reading itself was M&A back in 2016, and they got Canalis and all sorts of other stuff they've bought over the years. And then on the event side, they're just enormous. I was looking at the Informa annual report, I think it was, or was it the quarterlies? I can't remember. And some of the bits one of the events that brings in the most wedge for them is called, I think, Concrete World. With that
World of Concrete.
World of Concrete, there you go. Big difference. World
World of Concrete's out
Not to
better,
be
doesn't it,
mistaken.
really?
of Concrete. Yeah, well, it sounds more like one of those sort of aesthetic critiques of like, everything's just concreted over now. Concrete over the countryside, haven't we? But yeah, it's all these little niches. And Informa is very good at occupying those little niches, so fair play to it. That's just me sucking up to the Informa hierarchy. Just make sure that they keep giving me a
They're
job.
from what I'm just seeing this as an sort of semi-outside, a tiny bit of inside.
Yeah.
They're also very they're also ruthless. I don't know if ruthless is quite the word, but if they don't like a segment, they sell it.
Right.
Yeah.
As well, they're not emotional.
Ruthlessly efficient, maybe.
They they had a big pharma business
Right.
before,
And it
remember?
wasn't.
And sold that for £1 billion,
Right.
sterling.
Well, I mean, we often say
you
it's
think
about...
that would be a good business, but so you don't necessarily know with them what
Well, our group CEO, Stephen Carter, does love a bit of M&A. I mean, I think he just gets bored and just goes, fuck it, I'm going to buy/sell something today because I haven't done it for a while. That's my guess about Informer's corporate strategy. No, I'm only joking.
Well, I think their corporate strategy is really
By the way,
give shareholder returns, which they do pretty well. And
yeah. Anyone who's not in the room, while I was just coming out with that random stream of consciousness about Stephen Carter, Gabe and Ian were looking at each other nervously, going, "Where the fuck is Scott going? And is he going to drag us down with him?"
I mean, I think he does love a bit of M&A.
Oh,
I mean, this
I wasn't
obvious,
miles
isn't
off
it?
then.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's you'd only have to look at the action of the company. We might not, through no fault of our own, we might not be Informer at some point in future.
Yeah, well, he's stuck with Telecoms.com for the whole time we've been here, so bless him.
What they have done really well, and this isn't sucking up at all, but it's quite parochial, is build a really successful global business based in the UK, headquartered in the UK, and with a sort of UK core. Obviously, they've got assets everywhere in Hong Kong.
No, it's true, but it's still HQ in the UK.
Brazil and wherever. They've got, Middle East is massive. So they've got, but it is a sort of, from a sort of, you see a lot of UK companies being taken over by American and hollowed out and this and that. So it's actually quite nice.
No, it'd be fair to say that Informer's a bit of a national champion.
Yeah.
Granted, against diminishing competition for that title. But yeah, I'll take that point. Right, I'm definitely going to move it on because, as usual, we haven't left much time for the other sort of newsy.
Can I go and powder my nose?
Cheers. Ian needs a slash. Go on then. Let's do that now.
Right.
Okay, we're back in the room. And we're going to move on to a couple of bits of news. We're going to
It's
start...
not really news anymore, is it?
No, but I mean, this is it is because you wrote a follow-up bit of analysis. I'll hand it over to you. You wrote a piece a couple of weeks ago or so, Ian, saying ailing Intel to sell network biz in frightener for Ericsson. But we never got around to talking about that on the pod. So
I've written a more recent one.
exactly. I was just leading up to that, and then you wrote a bit of news analysis this week, saying an Ericsson takeover of the Intel network biz. You like biz, don't you?
Well, there's too many letters in the business. They need to invent a shorter one that allows me to...
It's like if you're going to say billion in journalism, you've got to put bun
Someone had a rule about not using more than 65 characters in the headline.
in the headline. Well, yeah, that's probably not a bad rule.
I'm not going to actually mention the name because that would be, but it was someone who used to work at the company.
All right.
Because if you went longer than that, then you were
Ray.
less likely to turn up in internet searches
Fair
for
enough.
some reason.
Anyway, you said an Ericsson takeover Intel network biz wouldn't work. So why don't you tell us?
But if you do a search on Intel and Ericsson on Google News at the moment, that is the top story.
Okay, well then tell us all about it. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth.
Well, it's not new. So Intel, obviously, it's no secret that Intel is having some difficulties business-wise. You're going to talk about this a bit in a moment on a sort of bigger scale.
That's segment 3.
They've got various challenges. Basically, there's a kind of shift going on, really, I guess, towards a new type of infrastructure driven by NVIDIA's AI chips and GPUs. So a lot of the investment that's going into GPUs at the moment would, previously maybe have gone into Intel CPUs. Is this argument that Intel's got that the computing platforms of the future are very much going to be GPU based, and Intel's perceived to be not really a strong player in that market. I don't think anybody is really. There's people talk about AMD, and then if you're in China, Huawei as kind of GPU options, but NVIDIA's got the whole kind of CUDA moat around its...
in principle, yeah, you've got the CUDA moat, as you say. AMD, in principle, should be right up there, because back when, in a previous life as a tech journalist, I covered the acquisition of ATI.
Yeah.
So ATI, this is when I was writing it more from a graphics card in gaming PCs point of view.
Yeah.
But NVIDIA and ATI were, I don't know if they were quite neck and neck, but they were highly competitive with each other, and then AMD bought ATI.
But they're the only other ones that come up really in sort of GPU discussions, and the NVIDIA stuff, the Intel stuff that they've been talking about, still analysts, and I'm not an expert on that area by any means, but analysts still sort of seem to not look at that as being a sort of strong feature. And they've had problems for years with things like moving to new process nodes, moving from to the nanometers that you measure your transistors at. They always seem to have struggled with these upgrades for a long time. Like well before their current problems.
No, they've been having a mare on the manufacturing side for years.
They've been massively caught up in geopolitics. So under the previous CEO, who was Pat Gelsinger, they had a sort of plan to sort of become a bigger sort of foundry business and try and go head to head with like TSMC
and foundry,
Samsung.
for people who don't know the lexicon,
contract,
it means contract chip manufacturer
maker.
rather than making chips for yourself.
Yeah, which is a really costly thing to do, to set up that, obviously, and
especially when you've got a dominant player like TSMC
it
already.
suited like American ambitions because there's a perception that too much manufacturing's done in Asia, and we've sort of America's kind of lost out there, and it's become fabulous, and the designs are done in America, but we don't want to be over reliant on Asia for. So there's been this movement towards having like sort of US foundry companies. You've got this thing called the CHIPS Act. You know what it stands for?
Oh, I looked it up the other day. It's just so hilarious.
Computer? No.
No, now you've told me. I've got to go and find it. But carry on, I'll find it.
They've put a lot into that. They've got these things going on multiple fronts. So there's this push to become a foundry business, gobbling resources, not really there in the AI game. A lot of the technology that they do have that they've been strong in for years, which is basically their chips being used in things like that, your PC and data center servers. There's more challenges there coming partly from AMD that we mentioned, which uses the same kind of x86 architecture, but there's a growing sense that ARM is emerging as a kind of stronger competitor in that market. The big hyperscalers are doing their own kind of ARM-based chips, so some of it's coming from there.
Creating helpful incentives to produce semiconductors.
There we are, I just found it.
Science Act.
So this is a funny thing. Americans love what I call forced acronyms. So it's about semiconductors. So they're going to call it chips. I think what they do, and I can relate to that.
It backwards.
Yeah, exactly. What I did this in one bit in my book where I just came up with stupid little childish acronyms like arse and shit, and then I reverse engineered the words to justify it. And I think that's what I did with CHIPS Act.
Yeah, they have.
And so it's called Creating Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors.
Very silly.
And science.
Anyway, it seems they're not going to do as much of that because they've pulled back from some of those plans. They've scrapped some of the stuff they were going to do in Europe, I think.
More on the CHIPS Act in a bit, anyway.
I mean, they've basically, Pat Gelsinger left last year and they've replaced him with this guy called Lip Bhutan, who I didn't really know much about.
He was on the board of Intel for a bit.
And he took over really recently, but he's now in this position of having to figure out which areas they're going to get out of, it seems. He's cutting loads of jobs. They had about 100.
He's trying to turn the company around because the company's not doing well.
Yeah. And there's a lot of job cut, like massive amounts of job cutting going on. It's more than 15%. All the stuff about 15% of headcount, they always seem to come out with that number. It's much more than that. They had 125,000 people a couple of years ago. By the end of this year, they want 75,000 on the payroll. They've spun off this custom chip business called Altera already, that did the sort of programmable stuff. Did a lot of,
and they sold their modem business to Apple.
Yeah. So Altera did a lot of like FPGAs, I think, and
right.
Some ASIC stuff, and then he's obviously looking at other non-core assets that they can get out of, and the foundry stuff's taken a bit of a hit, obviously. But one area is this business they used to operate called NEX standing for Network and Edge,
right?
Which covers quite a lot of stuff. But one part of that was doing sort of 5G chips for radio access networks, and I mean it's been rumoured for a long time. It's like floating around that they've been trying to sell some of the assets there. And then I think Bloomberg got the original, like the recent scoop on it where... No, it wasn't Bloomberg, was it? It was CRN.
Yeah, that's right. And you linked to them, so fair play to you. Yeah.
I did. Yeah, well, I wouldn't not link to people who've got...
Well, some sites don't link to people.
Well, they got a memo which actually sort of confirmed that Nex they're trying to spin it out. So... if they're going to do what they did with Altera, they spun that out, and then Silver Lake, which is a private equity company, now owns 51% of that, and Intel's got the other 49%. So it could be something like that. But it's quite dramatic for the telecom sector because they pushed quite hard into 5G back into the 2018, 2019 to have a big part in kind of the RAN compute side of things.
Yeah.
And they were selling chips to like Nokia, Ericsson, I think even ZTE back at the time. They're very much behind this movement called Open RAN that we always talk about to get other kind of companies into the market. So people like Mavenir, Rakuten, and them exiting that market and that being acquired by someone else potentially is quite disruptive, obviously, for the companies that are involved in that area. It's like, what's going to happen with it?
So that's your point about your earlier headline about frightener for Ericsson.
The reason Ericsson's been linked so strongly is because Ericsson's really kind of the company that's most reliant on it.
Bought into it.
So like Nokia back in the early days of 5G, sort of the 2018, 2019 timeframe, from what I've understand from talking to people who were sort of involved in it all and from various research notes and everything, they kind of went all in with Intel. Like the 5G strategy is very much based on use of Intel chips on the RAN compute side, like the baseband stuff.
Yeah.
And they kind of, it wasn't all to do with Intel. Like they had various other things going on at the time. They had a merger with Alcatel-Lucent they were trying to get through. They had some software issues.
Wasn't the FPGA misstep very much?
Well, the FPGAs were a
fallback.
fallback. After they were kind of let down on deliveries of chips.
Right, okay, fair enough.
They kind of had to sort of fall back to it. So the FPGAs are like a stopgap while they sort of sorted out what they were going to do. But
Intel's let a few people down. Let Apple down over the 5G modem thing. There've been a few quite high-profile things over the last 5 or 10 years where something's gone Pete Tong because Intel wasn't able to deliver what it promised.
Yeah, and Nokia's response to that was to... And I think if you listen to analyst calls that were going on at the time when Rajiv Suri was CEO, it was a lot of stuff about we were overly reliant on a single vendor kind of thing. Comes up quite a lot.
Intel.
Yeah, I mean, analysts were calling out Intel, and there was some banking notes going around, and then spoke to a few people about it. I mean, the recent management, if you talk to people like Tommy Wito, who's head of the mobile network side of things, he's quite frank about it all because he wasn't really, he kind of got promoted after all of that, I think.
Okay.
There's a guy called Mark Ruan who was in charge of it at the time.
Yeah. Where's he at now?
He went to Dish, but I don't know where he is now.
Yeah, I think that's the last I heard.
But it looked like the whole heavy reliance on Intel and a lot of the stuff they'd done hadn't really worked out, and it sort of backfired, and it kind of poisoned the relationship a little bit. I think.
Well, it would.
Like the current Nokia strategy really is to sort of try and move away from Intel as much as possible.
Well, it's a good company. That's one of the reasons Intel's in this bother, because lots of people have
so they'd
made that conclusion.
They'd gone from, they'd actually been trying to use Intel chips, apparently even in the radio units for things like the digital front end, which isn't an area that Intel had been in that much before. They were even using Intel chips there. But they've moved to Broadcom for that. They introduced Marvell for part of the RAN compute, and they still had Intel for like the stuff that's like the less demanding functions. But then I think in the latest products, they've gone to like full Marvell, from what I've been told. It's all like Marvell based.
Okay.
And then this whole open RAN thing of trying to get other companies into the market hasn't really advanced as much as people would have hoped. So if you look at the structure of the market, it's still very much a 3-player thing serving 3/4 of it. That's Omdia's numbers. So who do you really have to worry about?
Omdia not in brackets this time.
Who do you really have to worry about on the kind of RAN side? You know, among that group, if Nokia is trying to move away from Intel, Huawei was never really a big Intel customer. That's the other one. The only other substantial player there is Samsung, I guess. But Ericsson is very sort of heavily based on. Yeah. They're very intertwined with Intel. I think.
I mean, some of this is older history, but nearly all of telecom in some form is intertwined with Intel, though. I don't think it's. I mean, I'm not sure. I was quite interested in reading your stories where the Ericsson link came out so strongly, because from what I can tell, every network and just about every OEM has got an Intel tie-in.
Totally has.
So it's kind of
well, this is the problem where I see like trying to sell Next. So Next isn't even just 5G networks anyway. Like there's a lot of edge stuff in there that's got nothing to do with
most of that ties back to the processor roadmap, right?
Completely.
Which is in the core business.
Completely.
So it's kind of a weird thing to try and spin off.
And I think this is why, even though people have got this perception that Ericsson's one of the RAN kit vendors that's the most reliant on Intel, which it probably is, if you look at the big ones, I think a straightforward sale of...
But they're reliant in different ways. Like they use Intel Fab, don't they?
They use Intel Fab for this 1880.
Completely different part of the...
If you talk to them about it, and they're quite secretive about it. What they would say, like their radio unit chips are not Intel based because they're not really active in that area, except for this thing they tried to do on the DFE side with Nokia. But the RAN compute, the baseband stuff, is they have a unit called Ericsson Silicon, where they design the silicon, but they rely on Intel manufacturing expertise.
Right.
But none of that would be in this next unit. That's in some other part of Intel, the fab business.
The foundry bit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's Xeon D processors that they're using for some of those RAN compute functions. Basically, so they've got their Ericsson silicon designs, which then the manufacturing expertise, like you say, comes from the foundry stuff, 18A. But they're using chips that I think they originally kind of got promoted under this Snow Ridge brand, and then it changed to Atom. And they were making a big deal of it like 2019, 2020. And that's used for sort of layer 2 plus stuff in the Ericsson products.
Atom was an Intel brand from fucking 20 or 30 years ago.
But if you talk to people who are outside Ericsson, they think that the link between Intel and Ericsson, even on the layer 1 stuff, which is like the physical layer, the stuff that's like resource hungry, is a lot tighter than Ericsson makes out. It's more akin to what you see happening with Marvell and Nokia in layer 1, where it's a pairing of intellectual property basically. So you've got the two of them
from their fab side, though, isn't it? Really, in their
on a design basis,
on a design basis.
That Ericsson's just basically sort of playing down how involved Intel is and playing up its own sort of design stuff.
They call it MCA, don't they?
Yeah,
Ericsson.
exactly. Yeah. But I think a straightforward deal to try and get that sold. I mean, that was the basis of the story, really.
Why,
it would be quite difficult to do.
To quote your own words back at you, why will an Ericsson take over the Intel network but it's not work?
Well, like Gabe said, because a lot of that stuff that's in Next is used by so many other companies. I think there's two reasons. One is it's used by lots of other companies, including Ericsson competitors. It's a bit like, I think I started it off with a comparison to the NVIDIA ARM.
Yes,
stuff that was going on a few years ago, like NVIDIA, if it had bought, it's not exactly the same.
You didn't capitalise either, I'm proud
It's not exactly the same, obviously, but if NVIDIA had been allowed to acquire ARM, it would have been a user of ARM technology, which it is now, and also selling that technology to
It would have been in a
rivals.
position. It would be in a position to deny ARM technology to its direct competitors.
Yeah. Now,
which
even if you accept that
fucked up dynamic.
Nokia's latest products are getting away from Intel, it's still a lot of the installed base is still including Intel chips, and Samsung's very heavily reliant on Intel. I mean, Samsung because it's most of its stuff's probably I don't know if you know this, but what percentage of Samsung's like 5G equipment is virtual RAN as opposed to purpose built? But they're clearly a lot higher than the other vendors in terms of the percentage that's virtual
Samsung
RAN.
has probably half of, maybe slightly over half-ish of the entire virtual RAN market.
Yeah. And their whole virtual RAN strategy is based on Intel. So
if anyone's going to buy it, it should be Samsung.
Well, I mean, Ericsson's is a bigger customer of Intel than Samsung would be. But the point is,
I just don't see it at all that Ericsson would buy that division. Or I can see
it's not its core competence.
I can see they might have to chip in a bit, like everyone else, to kind of keep it going. It seems like
that's one scenario.
More on chipping into Intel in a sec.
It's a bit of a tragedy.
It's a
bit of a tragedy, though, what's happened to Intel, really. And there's obviously the big picture stuff of like, which you can order kind of ARM transition essentially. But in telecom, they've until now done a really good job of supporting all the software developers through generations, and that's why they're so embedded everywhere.
Yeah,
because they've supported everyone.
Yeah, and
so
they've got
long.
decades of
cloud. Essentially, cloud is
all that.
Mostly Intel based, right?
Totally, yeah.
And the big problem now is, what do you do for roadmap, right? Like, it doesn't really matter what product you're in. Like, is your next generation or the one after that, what's going to happen? Like, if your suppliers in this big uncertainty phase, restructuring, switching stuff, you don't know, right? And if they're canning roadmaps that you've based stuff on, this is what's going to make it very difficult, I think. And that's why there's going to be this pivot over at least a bit to what you'd mentioning with Marvell, but NVIDIA.
And that's why Intel's in a bit of a death spiral, because with each new misstep, you get diminishing market confidence, and then that accentuates or accelerates the shitty situation they're already in.
I don't think it's just like the point about Ericsson buying it, and then there's lots of other companies that are using that stuff as well, and that's a conflict of interest issue. I think the other problem is, I think it's quite hard to just separate out Nex and have it as a kind of standalone business, because I mean, even Intel has said this in the past, the whole attraction of Intel as a developer of RAN chips, as opposed to having like a small company, relatively small chip developer like Ericsson doing.
So the roadmap thing. they're going to be around in 10 years.
It ties into their bigger ecosystem. It's all like the kind of core of the company, the x86 technology and all the kind of developments that are happening there are kind of filtering down into the other chips that they're providing for specific units. And if you just kind of take it out, what's its relationship then with the main bit of Intel?
I think that sounds like sound reasoning.
It's very hard to see how that would happen and how that would be managed. So, yeah, that's basically the gist of the story.
Well, and I've just seen, if you don't mind me moving on, because as ever, we're condensing the last bits because we banged on for ages in the first
standalone. Is standalone 5G.
Say it again?
Bloody standalone 5G.
Right, bloody Gabriel Brown won't shut his mouth.
Never a frown with Gabriel Brown.
I'd never thought of that. Great track. Yeah. No, I was just reading a little bit of your story where you say, and this is my segue, you were talking about the new CEO of Intel called Lip-Bu Tan, and you said he's recently found himself under the hostile apprentice-style gaze of Donald Trump. So in one of my stories...
Well, he's got far too Chinese a name, hasn't he, to possibly...
Well, that's amazing. That's exactly what I said. I don't know if you read my story, but I basically said
Probably
that.
Do, yeah.
Where is it? Let me find it. I've got too many... Oh, yeah, so I wrote a story. That's it. So I wrote a story. You were talking about apprentice-style gaze. Talking about gaze. I'm just showing Ian the image that I use for my story, which I don't know if you recognise that. That's the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it looks like a fiery vagina.
That's one way of looking at it. I don't think we've ever used that word on the podcast here.
Fiery vagina.
We're breaking new ground now. And the reason I use the Eye of Sauron is, you know, in Lord of the Rings, it was up there in Mordor, and then the thing is you didn't want it fucking landing on you because then you're in trouble and there'll be all orcs and bad shit happening. And this was a story I wrote about a week ago, headlined America's China Purge Extends Even to Intel. And what had happened was Donald Trump had done one of his truths. And he'd gone, the CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. It's like, seemed like out of the blue. He's like, what the fuck you
just likes using the word immediately, doesn't he? It's like when he's trying to get rid of homeless people, isn't it? They must leave immediately.
Oh, and then he's got this little...
Where are they supposed to go? They're homeless.
And then he goes, there's no other solution to this problem. Then he's got this other little thing that he's trying to develop as a sort of idiosyncratic calling sign. Thank you for your attention to this problem! ! Anyway, but then what had actually happened was that a senator called Tom Cotton had written a thing going... he'd written...
Well, I love him.
Right, yes, yeah, I can imagine.
He's their favourite person, apparently.
Yeah, I think he's a known China hawk, isn't he? And he'd written a thing expressing concern over this guy Lip-Bu Tan's ties to China. And anyway, to your point that you made, and again, I don't know if you were reflecting my piece or you just came up with it spontaneously, it doesn't really matter. But I wrote, the eagle-eyed politician had noticed that Tan's name seems a bit Chinese, you see. And then I put in brackets, Tan was born in Malaysia and is a US citizen. And seems to assume that's where his true loyalties must lie. And then he'd written this whole thing about, like, what the fuck are you up to? And then I think Trump had just jumped on it. And, you know, the thing about Trump is you never know. When he does one of these outbursts, you don't know whether he's given it more than like a moment's thought. I mean, because say what you want about him, he's fairly productive. He gets a lot of stuff done. A lot of it you might hate, but he does get a lot of stuff done over a given day. And so when he sits down to whack out one of his little truths, he might not have given it very much thought at all. In fact, the smart money is that he hasn't.
Well, he's busy, but I don't know if he's productive.
Okay, well, fair enough. And then we got the thing that I wrote today. Which is US states said to be looking for a piece of intel. And this is journalism from, I think the original source was Bloomberg. But then, as is often the way, I don't know if you noticed this, Gabe, but you get someone like Bloomberg and they'll write something and then within an hour, Wall Street Journal, FT, Reuters, a few others will all have it, but they will have independently sourced it. And I think they're all going to the same person. And that person, that inside source, which is normally a government or a deep state source, I think, they give someone an exclusive, and there's all sorts of transactional stuff that goes on at those papers where, you know, you get a good source and they go, look, I'll give you an exclusive, but I want you to do something in return, like benign coverage or something like that.
That's a shocking idea.
Yeah, I know, isn't it?
The US government taking a stake in Intel.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, I thought you were talking about that. Yeah. So then it got independently. Well, I'm going to get into that. That's my story today. And so the Wall Street Journal, the FT, and others just went. They got it independently sourced, and I said that discussion seems to have taken place when Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan was summoned to appear before Trump after the latter had publicly called for the former to resign, i.e. the previous story that I was just outlining. And so none of this has been confirmed. This is all just like people familiar with the matter and all that sort of thing. But basically, Trump seems to want the US government to have a major equity stake in Intel. I guessed between 8 and 20% in my story. And I said, and I pointed out, and I'm sure this is what just occurred to you, and I'll shut up in a second. You can put your perspective and yours for that matter, Gabe. I get it. Intel's struggling. You do get state bailouts. We had like Royal Bank of Scotland back in the financial crisis of 2008 and all that sort of thing.
Is Intel too big to fail?
Well, there's the too big to fail thing, but then there's the, I referred to it as a Faustian pact. Problem with getting into bed with the government, then the government's going to start telling you what to do because it will be sat on the board in effect. And its priorities won't necessarily coincide with yours or that of your investors. And then I just
it's not too dissimilar to Trump wanting 15% of AMD and Nvidia's revenues, isn't it? This unhealthy sort of.
Well, I mentioned that in the thing. In fact, if you don't mind, I'll read another paragraph of my story today.
Go on, I'll reading your.
I read myself back. He probably would if he had a laptop up. I'm just the only one who's got a laptop open on the pod. I wrote, this latest move is consistent with Trump's increasingly transactional mafia-style approach, using coercion to extract exceptional concessions from companies and countries alike. The AI arms race has made him especially interested in the chip sector, even going so far as to extort money from US chip makers Nvidia and AMD in order for them to be allowed to sell GPUs into China. So that was a previous story that you just flagged up, Ian, where he just went out of the blue. They've had this whole thing, I'm sure you're aware of it, Gabe, about these... Nvidia's like done ridiculously well over the last few years because people are just fighting to get hold of these chips. The latest cutting edge one's called an H100, and the US has gone, well, you can't be selling them to Chinese because then China might get too good at AI and they might win this putative race. But what you can do is you can come up with something a bit shitter, and they go, all right, what about this H20? Which let's assume it's numerical. Let's say it's a fifth as good as the H100. You can sell that, but even then, they keep changing the goalposts. This is one of the big problems with Trump's approach is he's so volatile that no one can make any decisions. Back to your points about roadmap earlier, no one can plan anything because you never know what kind of a mood he's going to be in when he gets out of bed the next morning and just comes out with some new bright idea. Anyway, and the latest thing he said was like, all right, you can sell those H20s in and the AMD can sell their equivalent in, but only if you pay 15% of the revenue, not the profit, the revenue of those that you sell into China, only if you kick that back to the government, which again seems... That's why I feel justified in the use of the terms mafia style. It's all just getting a piece of the action through extortion.
Well, it's a great deal for those companies because the amount they were selling in China before was so much that they'd quite happily do that probably and hand over 50%.
Yeah, well, it's not as good a deal as not paying it.
It's not as good as not paying it, but I suspect they've sat down, looked at the numbers and gone, we're still well up here on... where we would have been.
Oh, they'll pay it. And Trump knows it. I mean, again, say what you want about Trump, he knows how to do a deal.
What's Nvidia's gross margins at the moment? About 75% or something ridiculous.
Something scary.
So that's why they'd be willing to do it. But yeah, it's a worrying development. I mean, I'm increasingly worried by the stuff that comes out of Trump, to be honest. But the stuff the last week's been like more worrying than ever, really.
It's just getting more and more top-down and dictatorial. Like, there was another thing that I wrote last week about Apple. So Trump had Tim Cook, Apple CEO, turn up at the White House and have this, what I called a hostage video style presentation, because he basically stood up there at this podium. Trump had done his usual Trumpy thing. And then Cook stood up, this guy who's the CEO of one of the most powerful, valuable companies in the world, and basically just went, yeah, Donald Trump's great and we really love him and we'll do whatever he wants. And he even presented him with some golden fucking trophy or something. It's just really obscene, the whole thing. And what it was, you know, Trump's whole sort of underlying thing is supposedly this national populist thing of reshoring manufacturing and bringing jobs back to the US, which as an aspiration, I think is fair enough, but the way he's going about it, I don't agree with. And he's made Tim
Not that
Cook...
unemployment's at a particularly high level in the US anymore anyway.
No, and you know, and I think the manufacturing genie's out the bottle. I mean, China got better at doing manufacturing well for less money than the West decades ago, didn't they? So I don't know how you undo that. Anyway, he's going to give it a go because he's Trump and he's like, fuck it, I'm going to give it a go.
All these people working in very profitable services companies and making loads of money are going to go and make trainers.
Like us, do you think we're going to be retrained as trainers?
Could happen.
I'll do what will three of us do? I'll do the little design on the top. What about you? You can do the soles.
I'll do the laces.
I'll probably be in the design department, setting trend and whatnot.
Just setting new trainer paradigms.
Yeah,
fair enough. Anyway, he had this thing where
you heard the term. I don't really have much to say about a lot of what you talked about.
Well, don't worry.
But you've heard this term of slightly tongue in cheek, but call it capitalism with American characteristics.
Yeah, I love that. You told me that earlier. And explain why that's a funny turn of phrase.
Well, because they call it in China, don't they? Since the market liberalization, I guess they call it capitalism with Chinese.
No, they call it communism with Chinese characteristics in China,
and capitalism with.
Oh, do they?
Chinese
I thought it was just communism because I thought their point was they were trying to reconcile the fact that it's communism, but they've got this rampant private sector and incredibly.
I'd always understood it to be capitalism with Chinese characteristics.
It could be either, couldn't it?
Because obviously it's they are
okay.
Very.
But the operative term is the with national characteristics, and I love that with America because. Like in the story I wrote today, there were loads of commentators going on about, you know, Americans can be a bit absolutist about these things. They're going, this is just fucking socialism.
Interesting on the Lip Bhutan stuff, though, that he, a few days ago, he was like, we need to get rid of this guy. He's Chinese with a name like Lip Bhutan, must obviously be funding the Chinese Communist Party.
Even though he's Malaysian by birth, but
don't worry about details like that, Scott. And then he met him and suddenly seems to think he's great. So what happened there?
Well, I wrote, I mean, I know this is what you're saying, but I wrote that as the strapline of my story today. I said, it seems the US President Trump's persecution of Intel CEO was merely the start of a negotiation.
Yeah.
And going back to the CHIPS Act thing that we're talking about.
So this is them taking a stake, the negotiation.
Well, yeah, and actually it's not quite as abrupt as it seems because in the CHIPS Act, which is something that was initiated under Biden, this thing with this silly reverse engineered acronym that we were laughing about earlier, they had arranged to chuck between $8 and $20 billion at Intel already.
Yeah.
And I think all Trump's really done is just gone, they were just going to chuck it with fewer strings attached. Presumably there were strings attached, but he's just gone, all right, you can have it, but we want an equity swap.
Yeah.
And that's how he's renegotiated the thing. And I think you're right. I think he's set up the negotiation.
If he carries on like this, he could be Jeremy Corbyn before too long. You know,
with
stakes in all sorts of companies.
Yeah, well, and that's the broader philosophical thing. It's interesting. Like sometimes when I've been out and you in a pub, we've had friendly chats about politics where I'm coming a bit more from the right, you're coming a bit more from the left, but it's always been civilized, constructive stuff. But lots of people are framing this in a very, they specifically referring to the Marxist thing. Look, you love this. This is a link I had in my story, a bit of Karl Marx. Where he talks about the socialist mode of production, specifically talks about the state owning the means of production, which is like a very sort of Marxist thing. Lots of people are framing it that way, and I think that's a bit hyperbolic and a bit hysterical at this stage. You know, if the US government wants to own 10% of Intel, I still think it's worrying, but they're not quite. This isn't quite the fucking Russian Revolution yet, so I think everyone needs to calm down a little bit.
It's a bit like you said with the the bank bailouts, isn't it? It's a sort of too big to fail kind of situation.
Yeah, especially in a strategic point of view in this case.
And definitely in the UK, they had ownerships of what was it?
RBS,
Royal Bank of Scotland, and NatWest and everything. And even UK had a stake in OneWeb as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
And that's obviously been diluted down with all the subsequent investments and things. But there's a kind of a case for it. I don't know if I'd characterise my pub position as coming from the left, but
only relative to me.
Well, he said that.
But no, feel free to reposition it. If I've misrepresented you, I apologise.
We should do a pubcast.
That's
Well,
that's not the point of this. That's why we drink on it. This is sort of a pubcast.
Yeah.
But there is a case for it, and so I guess if you're thinking really properly about your national interest, and somehow oftentimes people are so nationalistic now.
Yeah,
and they almost will put aside their left or right. Or
that's
this party
definitely
or that
a
party
trend
for that.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about? And you're American, about having a national champion chip designer and manufacturer. I mean, America's got amazing silicon sector, right? They've got they've got Nvidia, they've got Qualcomm, they've got AMD. They haven't got Broadcom,
Marvell.
They haven't got a problem with that. I suppose it's the fab side, isn't it? That's gone. It's Intel, really, basically, which is the
exactly. So they're inclined to bail it out in terms of national interest, which I understand is you get the impulse, but I still think the consequence of it. And like one other thing I want to point out, which I said in my story, again, I think it's better just if I read myself back because this is what I think. I said the ultimate irony of Trump's recent actions is that in his desperation to beat China, he's making the US much more like it. Let's not forget that the main case against Huawei is the allegation that it's controlled by the Chinese state. Surely this move would make the US at least as culpable of such a charge and consequently, I should put also, that would have been better, make it impossible for Intel to do business in China. So, and I'm not the first person to make that point. The whole thing is like, well, you can't trust Huawei. We've got to ban Huawei because they're too closely tied to the Chinese state. Well, what does that say about Intel now and the US state? Exactly the same fucking thing.
Totally. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And also, if they're so concerned about US tech falling into the hands of the Chinese, which obviously they're not anymore because they're quite happy for AMD and Nvidia to sell stuff to them as long as they get a cut of revenues, then why is it that they're bothered about Huawei using TSMC?
Yeah. So
good thing about geopolitics is everyone's got an opinion, right? I mean, there's no no expertise.
Well, we could do a whole pod just banging on about this stuff.
Well, that's why we like talking about it because we're not experts.
And that's also one of the reasons why we do it last.
But
even sort of self-limiting.
But like even the experts are not experts, are they? Because it's so sector specific or
but you can reckon
we know a little bit about the tech industry, so we sort of extrapolate it into.
Yeah. I think what's clear is that the US decided a long time ago, and this definitely predates Trump, or at least this current manifestation of Trump. The US decided a long time ago that China's doing far too well technologically, and that's a geostrategic threat, which is fair enough. That's a coherent point of view. But then how they've gone. So
we're going to sell loads of Nvidia chips and they can re-engineer as long as we get some money out of it.
As long as we get 15% of the action. But yeah, and so now what they're trying to do is use their geopolitical, geostrategic heft to try and at least slow down Chinese technological progress.
That's all out the window after the last few days, isn't it?
Well, so it used to be they'd always talk about security. It's like, oh, we can't have that. We can't have Huawei spying on all our shit. That's why we're not allowed Huawei in our 5G networks and all that sort of thing.
Do you know what I'm a bit surprised about, though? Is like, I mean, maybe this is a sign of the fact that people are so unwilling to criticise Trump. Even the people who used to be critical of him in the Republican camp don't seem to want to say anything now. You'd have thought that, you looked at the first Trump administration when he backed off ZTE and did that deal with the Chinese government and we're saving jobs, and people like Marco Rubio, I think, and maybe Cotton at the time were coming out and like not very happy about it. Why has nobody gone actually selling Nvidia chips? Why have none of those guys that claim to be really principled, and their genuine concern is about US tech falling into Chinese hands where they could like use it for military purposes in the event of us going to war with, the US going to war with China. That's
over
the concern,
Taiwan or whatever.
using your tech against you. Why have none of those guys gone? Because I didn't read any of this. Maybe there was criticism. I was on holiday at the time. But why has no one gone, this 15% thing is absolutely outrageous?
Plenty of people have said that.
They have? Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know if other
politically.
politicians said it. There are plenty of commentators.
Yeah, but I didn't see a lot of like senators coming out with anything saying this is outrageous. They're all like,
that's different because
it is now.
That's politics.
Wait,
the
all
problem
of a
with
sudden
politics,
it is.
Politics is all fucking transactions and horse trading and pragmatism.
I just think no one's prepared. Yeah, but that's the big difference between this administration and the last Trump administration. Is everybody's now too scared to say anything to Trump.
I agree.
Which is a really scary situation to be in.
And also the opposition says, I won't go down this political rabbit hole, partly because we're running out of time. But the opposition...
We have run out of time.
We have run out of time.
We run out of time half an hour ago. No,
we're only at about 2 hours, I think, now. Pierre, about 2 hours or so? Yeah. Right. We started late because he turned up late, isn't it?
Yeah.
He couldn't... His passport got refused when he tried to get into the office.
Too soon, Scott.
Too soon. Is that... Yeah, on the Republican side, they all suck up to Trump, and on the Democrat side, I think they're being a bit too petulant. They're not actually attacking him in a really politically useful way. They're just going for more superficial things because he's such a divisive figure. They have such a disgust reflex towards him that they just go after some of his more superficial stuff. Whereas I wish, as you just said, they would just get into it, and I still hope they will, because I think when I wrote up that Nvidia and AMD 15% thing. I quote tweeted someone who said that it's actually unconstitutional to put export taxes, which is effectively what that is. So you hope that the courts or constitutional lawyers or whatever will get involved.
Well, they might be doing behind the scenes. It's just no one's reporting it. Yeah.
So, I mean, just to wrap it up, and I'll give each of you two the opportunity to have a final word before I do. I just think what's really interesting about it is Trump has, in my lifetime, and I'm not a young man, has got a really novel approach to a very muscular approach to politics and diplomacy, which is basically to throw his weight around and America's weight around, and it is the most powerful, richest, most consequential country in the world still, but to throw it around so much more assertively than I've ever seen before, and it's yielding short-term results. But I fear that in the long term, all he'll get is people kowtowing him and placating him for as long as they need to. And then as soon as he's gone, not only will everything that he did get undone, but America might have fucked up a lot of diplomatic relationships and a lot of dynamics that will extend far beyond his time. So anyway, that's my last thoughts on the matter. I know you don't have thoughts on this stuff, but have you been watching this unfold?
A little bit. I haven't watched that much. I thought only it's more of a...
Have some of this, mate.
They're quite big and serious issues that do go beyond the scope of telecom and even tech.
I'll plead guilty. I often go beyond the scope.
So I don't know what to say, really.
Don't worry, man. You don't have to say anything.
It's like there was one funny bit. I remember the Apple meeting thing where I didn't actually watch all of it, but I do. Some deal was done, whatever. Haven't paid that much attention, but Donald Trump says, and I thought this was quite funny. He says, "That's a lot of money, even for you." To Tim Cook.
He is a funny guy. I mean, again,
obviously they've got gigantic amount of money, haven't they? So.
Oh, Apple. I mean, their balance sheet is just silly.
Yeah. That's a big critique of them as well, though, isn't it? Like they could have done.
I think
could have got a good AI company out of that.
Because they're shit at AI right now,
share
aren't they?
buybacks or whatever.
I think he's at his most amusing when he's talking about Sadiq Khan.
Yeah, he sort of cussed him, didn't he, when he came over?
They've never bought anybody above,
They've never done mega M&A.
No, never. They're never about that. Yeah.
But they could have invested it internally, couldn't they? On engineers, R&D.
Yeah.
But you see what Meta is doing when they offer like silly money to engineers, like 100 million, 200 million.
Yeah.
Every time I hear about them chucking money at AI people, I think about my son who's doing an AI course right now.
Oh, to get on with that.
Maybe
Talk a bit his way.
maybe in 10 years' time he'll be loaded and he can start paying back some of the fucking money I've paid for him in the last 20 years.
Jensen Huang reckons you only need 100 to 150 people to build of the best people to build a killer AI company. I went to, I should have said this at the start, I went to the NVIDIA GTC, Global Tech Conference, earlier this summer. Saw his keynote. And it was, I've got to say, I've watched him on video and things before, but live, he's a great keynoter.
Fair play. Was he wearing his leather jacket?
Yeah, all that stuff. He did the press and analyst Q&A.
He's a bit of a windbag, though, isn't he?
He goes on a bit. Yeah, there was a long Q&A, to be fair. Like this, we're already going on from the end now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're definitely not windbags.
But he was great on the, he did a relatively small, like 100 analysts and journalists, or I don't know, something of that nature. But he was really great. I mean, he spent a few hours, just any question you want.
Right.
Ask me.
Well, that's good. I respect that. So, he's prepared to...
sycophancy in the press.
God, it's nauseating. This might...
But he was up for it, and, he got a bit shirty now and again, but it was, and he hung around to talk to everybody.
Well, I think when you consider how minted he is now, he doesn't have to do that. So... good for him.
Yeah.
Well, so if you win the Euro Millions, actually you probably have to win more than that. But you could start off your own AI company and just basically put an advert out for the 150 guys, offer them outrageous salaries.
Yeah.
And then a few years from then, you'd be the ruler of the world, Scott. That's my plan to you.
Maybe we'll save this for next pod, but I wrote a piece a little while back about how I think the AI's already in the middle of a massive speculative bubble.
Yes.
I'm not.
I think you're the only one.
Yeah, no, I'm not like uniquely prescient in that way.
We're going to see enshittification of it as well. Like in 20 years, we'll be like, remember when AI was pretty good?
Now And
AI is
on now.
What they call it, AI slop, don't they?
Yeah,
it's just all over the place.
It's shittified.
It's causing havoc in a bad way. I mean,
anyway, but that's a different pod. Cool. We better wrap it up there. Gabe, thanks a lot for coming up last minute. Thanks a lot for coming back, Pierre, even though you didn't choose to. And maybe
I choose to come here. I could have stayed home.
You could have stayed home, but you just missed us, didn't you?
Modern day Francis Drake doing his circumnavigation.
He missed the lads. He thought things have got so bad that I even want to hang out with Scott and Ian and Gabe. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little bonus pod that we didn't expect to do. You're still not going to get another for about another 2 weeks, but I hope you enjoyed this one.
Well, it depends if he gets on his flight or not, doesn't it?
Yeah, but we still got one penciled in, I think, for the 2nd of September.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean we might do another one next week?
Sooner.
Right.
We might do another one next week when he's fucked his flight up again. Okay, well, join us either then or on the 2nd of September. Cheers.